right.
Yay!
All right.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Brian Ralston.
And I'm Deane Ogden.
Surprise!
Wow. Hey,
back.
still.
This is the SCOREcast podcast, the official podcast of SCOREcastonline.com. And, I thought since we hadn't done a show in 5 years.
Last time we did a show was 1918 when this was all happening the first time.
I know. So, cue the Tchaikovsky symphony.
Right.
So, but Deane and I were talking that there would be probably no better way to handle a conversation on 2020 in general.
Yeah.
With some even serious stuff to talk about than the banter that you and I typically have. And I thought it would be a good idea to invite you back and do a show together. And thank you for agreeing to do it.
Of course. Well, I didn't have much choice because the honest truth is we did this once already. And
we did
a couple months ago, and we had a conversation that now means nothing.
Yeah,
because
we did
things happens.
We did a NAMM show episode right after the NAMM show, and it's like 7 days into the pandemic or whatever the heck it was here in the States.
Right.
And it because of a lot of that screwy stuff, it took a while to get that edited. And then you sit back and you look at that in hindsight, and with everything that's gone on and changed, and it now seems not only just out of date, but almost just a bit like naive to listen to that conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
Based on now. And so there's a whole show that's we're just going to delete and then replace it.
Yeah, there was some funny moments in it that we may just, clip out and do the portal highlights of,
But we won't have video for that.
That's true. That's true. We don't. It was just audio. Yeah.
Well, that's okay. We can just go black on those moments. And
Right. Right. Put our cartoon characters in there.
Yeah.
Our emojis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, wow. So how are you doing in Bali? How's the pandemic affecting you?
It's interesting. It's not been severe here, but it is in other places in the country. So Jakarta, for instance, I was talking to a friend of mine who was here last night hanging out, and he lives in Surabaya, which is a different island. It's in Java, which is the main island. And it's the east side of Java, so it's Jakarta towards us, basically, about halfway. And he lives in what's called the red zone, which is like the worst of the worst place, And so he came over here to kind of escape, and he's been here for a couple of weeks, him and his wife. And he said, the place is decimated. Like it's all, and because Surabaya, it's a big city, it's the second largest, I believe, I might be totally wrong, somebody can fact check me on this, but I think it's the second largest city in Indonesia, under Jakarta. And, but around it is just villages, as far as you can go from the mountains to the desert, it's villages. And they're inland from the coast. So there's nowhere to go, like the virus hit there and then it just jumped from village to village and infected everybody. And it's really bad. I mean, there's, I would say probably 65 to 75% of the cases in Indonesia are in that area. And so that's not good. But in Bali, because we're small and we're able to close things off so easily, I mean, there's one airport, there's one harbor. It's like if you close those two things, no one can get in or out, Yeah,
I mean,
you're gonna take a swim.
Sure, the more isolated a place is, I mean, the more you can truly
it's
lock
like
down.
I think I read like places in Africa, like Africa has like they have hardly any cases at all, like 3 or 4 or 5, like in the whole continent, or close to that. And that's relatively what it is here. When the whole thing started in January for us, I think we had 6 cases, and they were all in the hospital, and 5 of them were people from other countries. Tourists who'd come in and had it already before they left from wherever they were.
Yeah.
And I think today there's 7. So, and it's been consistently that for the last, since January, really. It's been like 5, 6, 7. I don't think it's ever gotten above 7. People that had known cases that were admitted here. I'm sure there's people who have it, they just don't know it, but
yeah.
Or maybe even people who've died that just didn't know that's what they died of. But recorded cases, I don't think it's certainly never gone past 10.
Yeah.
So we've just been locked down here at the house, and no,
but you do stuff worldwide. So as a musician and a drummer and everything else, so like you're. Mm-hmm. You were telling me about how like there is future work for you that's been impacted already, and there
have been projects that have been postponed or outright canceled in some cases, but luckily for me, the majority of my clients that I was working with pre outbreak have just either decided to just wait a while, or we've just gone ahead and done it because it's all remote. It's like it doesn't matter. Like no one was going to travel anyway, whether there was a pandemic or not. And so, I just go out and I cut my drums or I produce, and I'm working with a band that's here, that's staying here, and we're doing a record, but then the rest of it is like just remote, you know. Just the way that that you and I recorded on your project, like I just do it and send it off, and we do this, we Skype and talk about changes and tweaks and make notes and everything and talk it through, and it's easy. It's just like it's always been since I moved here. So in that regard, it's saved me having that mechanism down and having a foolproof way, really, barring the internet going away for some reason. Which we just got a new fiber optic just before this all started, so nice. Like the timing was perfect. So, anyway, that's been great. That's really saved me. That and royalty checks.
Passive income.
Yeah, man. So it's been okay. It's been okay professionally. The hardest part is just watching the locals. The tourist trade is zero here. The tourism is gone. And it won't be back for a long time, and that's painful because the whole place runs on that. These people make their living on the Australians coming over. This is the Maui of Australia.
It's their Hawaii.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when those guys are gone, there's no influx of economic growth here, and so I've seen a lot of my favorite people lose their businesses and their homes, and we've been part of a couple of efforts to try and mitigate that as much as possible, but it's just so much that it's impossible. There's 4 million people here, so on this island. So it's just it's been pretty devastating. But Indonesian people are extremely resourceful. They didn't win their Dutch independence sitting on their asses. They are very crafty and very smart, and I've seen people reinvent themselves and to do, a lot of older generation Indonesians who are in no way, shape, or form tech savvy at all are now teaching fitness classes on Zoom and teaching reading lessons on Zoom. And, Calvin's Mandarin tutor is a lady that's like in her 80s. And she just sits at home, and she's got 13 kids, and she teaches them Mandarin, and they're kicking ass. They're all learning. And so, they're finding ways to make it through, which is really cool. Yeah. But still, the overwhelming majority of people are really, it's tough to watch. They're hurting.
Sure. So. It's like it's like you just have to have that attitude where you don't let it defeat you, and you decide that you're gonna find a way to adapt and be nimble and adjust and move onward. And in a way, I envision that general from War Games. The guy that was in Northern Exposure. Hell,
right.
I'd piss on
Barry
a spark
Corbin.
plug if I knew I'd do any good.
That's right. I love that guy.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it is.
I used to think that actor was Nathan Arizona. Because they sort of look alike,
Yeah.
I don't know, they got Yodas and shit on them, huh? But it's not the same guy. I was really depressed when I found out that wasn't Barry Corbin. Anyway, useless fact number 1.
Oh, that's all right. No, yeah, I've been fortunate in that I have yet to really see an impact for my work in that, I'm not in TV a lot. I'm mostly in the independent film world a lot, and everything that's been on my plate, in front of me, and there was a film I was doing last fall, and then they came back and they're wanting to re-edit in the spring, and I started working on that again to kind of tweak some things that they had for their shot at film festival stuff, and like that stuff was all shot pre-pandemic, and then I'm just now starting a film this last month that will probably have me going for the next couple months on it. And that was shot over a year ago. And, it's been there, these independent films, sometimes their edit process takes longer than, a studio project with a release date or whatever. And so those things, everything that I'm doing was kind of pre-pandemic shot. So I may very well see the effects kind of delayed. I may, stuff that would be shooting now that I would necessarily be getting, the end of the fall or even beginning next spring might not be. And that's when I start feeling the effects of it. Maybe. Right. I don't know. It's
it's hard to say.
My UCLA classes haven't changed other than they've gone online, which is not ideal for what I want for the business of film music class. But at the same time, it's the same material. It's just taught like this. It's taught, via Zoom online, and I still have guests every class. And, it's not as cool to have their guest only appear via Skype or Zoom, I guess. When in class you could have some big name composer, come in, you get to meet somebody that you're like, wow, I got to meet so-and-so tonight.
Standing there with them.
Yeah. So that's a little hard, I think, for the students. I've last spring when they announced we were going to go remote all spring semester, I had some students emailing me asking, is this going to be the whole spring? Is it? And I'm just like, yeah, probably. And now I'm fielding emails from students wanting to sign up for the fall and going, can you tell me the difference of this class remotely versus when you taught it in person? And what is that? Should I just wait until next spring to take it? And all this other stuff. And that, I don't know how to answer that. There are some differences. I tell them what it is, and I say, it's, it really depends on if you have the ability to wait or not.
Yeah, I mean that's the big question, right? When will things subside enough?
November 4th
for things to go kind of like going back to normal a little bit. I mean, I got an email last night from a local event promoter here that they want to do a drum clinic, and they kind of sent me a diagram of how they want to do it so that I can see like where people are going to sit and everything, and it's all socially distanced and proper and everything, or as proper as I think it should be. Who knows what the rules are, or what's effective, but it looks like they're taking appropriate precautions. But then you think, well, is it really even necessary? The risk of I mean, I don't know. It's just that's the other thing about being over here is that, I mean, the Indonesian news and the information that comes from the government here is pretty transparent. I mean, they're not holding anything back as far as I can tell, from my skeptical, as skeptical as I am of government stuff. I've really paid attention to it because my other frame of reference, of course, is the American media, which I feel like is just like I mean, depends on where you look, right? What your information, But over here, there's one source of information pretty much. And they've been very, very, very detailed about where they've screwed up and where they waited too long and where they didn't do the right thing and what they're trying to do to rectify that and correct it. And it's pretty transparent, I think, because the public here is a lot more volatile than other places around the world, in the sense that there's so many people, especially in Jakarta, 17 million people in that city. And, I mean, you get enough people pissed off and you got real problems, like overnight, and so rioting. And I mean, it's happened many times before. So
not only a lot of people, it's a lot of people in a small space.
In a small space with very limited resources, so they get real creative about how they vandalize things, and so I mean they're very transparent about it and keeping everybody informed and what to do and where to go for help and where to get tested, and there's tests everywhere. I mean, even you can get tested at McDonald's here. Like, it's crazy.
Get a Mc test.
Yeah, get a Mc test. Yeah, free McFlurry with your COVID test. So it's, I mean, they've just made it very simple to get things done, and that's been helpful, to be able to traffic so many people through testing and tracing. And, if somebody gets tested positive here, they lock down your block. I mean, there's police tape. They don't let traffic in and out of your block. They quarantine everybody in your house. They take you to the hospital, whether you've tested positive for it or not. They take your family, take you over to I mean, it can be.
That's where, good or bad, that's where the constitutional stuff in the United States comes back to bite us, or however you people want to describe it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that stuff that the federal government doesn't even have the authority to do.
Right.
And even if the people want you to do it, they just don't. I like to think that over the years, I've always been a connoisseur of the Constitution, in that I just find that whole time frame and fascinating. When HBO does a John Adams miniseries, I'm like, I gotta watch it. I think it's, even though that's fictionalized, and I find that whole thing fascinating, because I think the Constitution is a great document. It's mostly a limit on government, not the rights of government or the rules, whatever, but it's like limitations on government, because the whole country was founded under a revolt. From a monarchy. It was written on the premise of having just come out of a pretty authoritarian government situation. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff. I mean, emergency management in the United States is really state by state. It's the governors, and the federal government is basically, they give advice and counsel. They declare things so that you can get disaster relief or low interest loans or whatever. And this is, emergency declaration. It's like, oh, great. Thank you. Now we can, now me as the governor can assign these resources to it because you, the president, declared this. But we don't have a huge history of federal response to stuff outside of war and military and other things. Like, I'm talking about domestic issues,
Right, because it rarely happens.
Yeah,
and when
it does, it's a hurricane. It's FEMA, it's disaster,
Katrina,
it's disaster relief. But even then, it's the governors are still in charge in the state. It's just FEMA sending resources and food and helicopters for search parties and stuff like that. They're not like in control of the thing. So now you have this pandemic situation, and you have testing, and you're like, there is no cohesive plan. I mean, there's because a lot of it is up to the state governors to deal with emergency management in their state, and that can be frustrating for a lot of people because every state's different, and even every county becomes different, and it's like, but then again, you've got California with all of its people, and then you've got Wyoming with hardly any people, and they don't need the same. Sorry, it's friend calling from France. I don't know if you heard that. She's probably going to call again.
Macron wanting some advice on what to do. This is one of the reasons I'm glad we're talking about this, because I think I can't have this conversation with anybody but you. Because you and I, we've known each other forever, and
I'm not going to unfriend you, Deane.
You're not going to unfriend me if I say some shit you don't like, which I probably have. In fact, I know I have. And vice versa. And you and I, we have, I think you and I actually are on the same page on most things.
I do too.
It's the way that we think we should get there, or the route we should take to get there, that maybe differs a little bit. So it's really insignificant in the sense of what our long-term goals are for our families and our careers and our own well-being, so on and so forth. And so what I'm excited about this conversation is that no matter how, if or how we disagree on something, we're going to walk away in the same place our relationship was 5 minutes before we started, which was A+, right? So what you're saying here is, I think, is interesting, because there's the biggest takeaway for me about what you're saying is the part about it just being unprecedented, right? This has never happened like this before. Even in the Great Plague of 1918 or whatever, like it was way worse than what we have now. But the circumstances were completely different. I mean, you had to wait at least 24 hours, at the minimum 24 hours, before you could find out what the fuck even happened yesterday.
The news
in your own area, right?
Yeah.
Somebody had to print it, somebody had to yell it, somebody had to broadcast it somehow, some way, whatever they were doing back then. Now it's instantaneous. And so not only is the disease and the magnitude of it somewhat unprecedented, and the way that it all unfolded unprecedented because of technology, and it got on a plane and came over to Europe, and then it went to New York, or it went to Nam and then went to Seattle, or whatever the fuck happened, right? But it's also the way in which we communicate about it that is just completely screwing everybody. Like it's the and I make no bones about my disdain and my dislike of the Trump administration, but in their defense, the federal emergency order happened on March 18th. That's not late, in my opinion. I mean, when shit really got rolling in February, it was really kind of February when everybody kind of went, whoa, what the hell is going on here? March 18th, a month later, everybody makes a big deal about, hey, they let a whole month go by before they blah, 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 blah. Well, nobody really knew what was happening. I mean, is it real? Is it a hoax? Are we being attacked? Did somebody release something? Is it a natural thing? Somebody ate a bat and fucking here we are, just what is going on? Like it took a minute,
Yeah.
And I've thought about it a lot. And look, I'm a liberal guy, but
you're a Bernie guy.
I was in the primary for sure.
Well, and you still are at heart. I mean, that's what
I believe. Politically, I lean way left. Yeah, right. But at the same time, let's be logical and measured about this and think about it for a second. Some of the things that my people, the libs, are crying foul about the most, when you really think it through for a second, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to why we would, how would you have reacted? And then tell me what your solution is then. If that wasn't the solution, then what was your solution? Well, we should have done this and this and this. Yeah, you know that now. 6 months later, with all that hindsight and all that historical knowledge to your benefit, yeah, you know that now. Yeah. But on March 1st, what did you actually know? What did you actually know that was factually accurate and scientifically proven and so on and so forth? If we believe in science and we believe in truth, what was the actual science and truth back then? Now, a lot of people are going to hear this and go, whoa, there was a lot, there was, well, not really, So I look at, I have sort of an advantage of being able to kind of stand back from all this from a 10,000 mile distance and look at how it's all unfolding over there in the States, where my business primarily is, most of my friends are, and all of my family, except for my wife and my 2 children here that are here with me. But my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, all my cousins, my aunts and uncles, everybody lives over there. And go, I know why people are upset. It's a devastating thing, and it's a travesty that we didn't do some things right, maybe, or we did or do them late or whatever. But really, I mean, what else could we have done? It's the craziest thing that happened. And if I was president, I don't know that I would necessarily had the forethought to do anything drastically different. I mean, looking back, I can see where mistakes were made, and I understand the point. But yeah, that's
we're gonna get a lot of email this episode.
Oh yeah, tons.
I do not believe, and if this is my naivete, then I guess so be it. But I don't believe that it is. I don't believe there is anybody in Washington, even politicians that we all despise, that are aiming to make this a worse place. And I mean the country. I think there are genuine disagreements, even like you and I have, about how to get to what is better. And even maybe certainly disagreements about what is better, whether it's about immigration policy or it's about, social programs or like all that other stuff like it. So, but I don't believe anybody's literally gone, oh, great, now I'm in charge, I can really kill people. It doesn't happen. And I don't think if the previous election had turned out any differently, I honestly don't believe we would have been better prepared. There are so many people in Washington that are just career Washington people, so ingrained, such cross-pollination between the parties. And, when a Republican administration is in charge or a Democratic one, those people don't go away. They're still kind of running the show in their own way, either from the private sector or as key lobbyists or as, legislators or whatever. It's the same group of people, no matter what party it's been, running the show for years, right?
Well, there's evidence. There's evidence of that on both sides now.
Exactly.
And people refuse to admit that, and they refuse to look at it, especially Democrats. The Democratic Party, in my opinion, is just as corrupt as any other party might be. And there is evidence, and this is, everybody's going to call, oh, yeah, you're still, burning for Bernie, whatever. You cannot deny that the Democrats have just opened the palms of their hands and given Trump whatever he's wanted for the last year at least. I mean, they could have fought for things even in this pandemic, even in this stimulus check thing, and the relief measures that the Trump administration has taken or not taken, depending on what you believe. But in my opinion, they did try some things, and the Democrats refused to try and push for more or better or more quality, or put money where it actually counts rather than putting it where it doesn't count, like with, Ruth's Chris getting money for fucking PPE loans, or, like payroll loans rather, it's a systemic corruption in our government, I think, that is the problem, not necessarily that, like what you're saying. There are career politicians who, no matter what the circumstances, whether it's a pandemic or it's a financial depression because of the housing market, like in 2008 or whatever, they're going to take advantage of the situation, no matter what, to whatever benefits their donor people, they're going to take advantage of it, whether they're on the right side of the aisle or the left side of the aisle. It doesn't make any difference. They're all there for the same purposes. So to me, I don't think that they don't necessarily want the country to be a bad place, or they're not gunning for us to fail, for sure. But at the same time, they're not going to stand up and go, "Hey, wait a second, this isn't right."
Yeah.
It's all going to be a blame game on the other party, and hey, they're trying to do this to you, and we want to do this and help you, and it's such a goofy, silly game to them.
Whoever won that last election, it was Donald Trump. But I'm just saying, whoever would have won, the reaction would have been the same from the opposite party. Like I still believe that
Hillary wouldn't have done enough.
It would have been.
She wouldn't have done enough soon enough.
We would still have a ton of deaths and cases and everything, because we are 350 million people. We are a very large country. You could fit like all of Europe in the size of our country with people and everything. Like it's a very large space, and it's very diverse space geographically and sociologically and culturally and everything else. And I believe we would have had still the highest cases because we're one of the largest countries. And and so
by the numbers,
and
makes
so
total sense.
If Hillary were in charge right now, I truly believe that, we would be, the Republicans would be just as angry and just as wanting to blame for every single thing. And it's kind of a no-win. So I get why people are upset, because people were already upset about the election, and they're going to be, the one in charge it's his responsibility. And so he's kind of earned that place. He can't say that it's not my fault, but I also don't think necessarily that anything else would have been done differently. I think the difference for me with him would not be in necessarily the processes by which he's handled this, because I think those are what they are. He's probably the most crass person since Lyndon Johnson that we've ever had.
His tenor, and his demeanor about the loss of life, and his kind of it's almost to me, at least, and just in my personal opinion, I don't know what other people feel, but to me it's felt like he's just kind of like, it is what it is. What the fuck are you gonna do?
He literally said that, didn't he?
I think he said it is what it is. Yeah, but and to a certain degree that is true. Life goes on, but at the same time, when you're the leader of a nation of 350 million people, you have to have a little bit of empathy toward what's happening, and I don't see that in him. And I'm not going to necessarily say that she would have had any kind of truthful empathy about it either. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what kind of a politician she would have been, but based on the the attitude she's had in other cases, I don't know. I don't hold out hope, but for sure, his particulars, in his example, there's no way, like him or hate him, that Obama would have ever said, "Yeah, well, it is what it is."
Yeah, sure. Well,
there's no universe that exists where that guy ever would have said anything like that.
People look to their leaders for hope. and for
Right.
something better, and the people that voted for him to be president, arguably did not vote for that. Like he's doing exactly what those people voted him to do, is to be the antithesis of a
Yes.
Washington politician.
True. That's true.
And it's because of how angry they were at the 8 years before that of this status quo thing we're talking about. And I believe that's what came out from that. And now that's reinvigorated the far left even more. And it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that, because one thing begets another. This is not all happening in a vacuum. And I think he's doing exactly what the people who voted for him to do. No one in Washington feels like they can control him, and he's unpredictable. And that's what they're like. We're tired of this Washington BS. But at the same time, he is not a person that's going to inspire confidence, hope, positive things. He's gonna fight back, and he's gonna do it crassly, and he's going to. And when you don't agree with the things he's fighting for, arguably he's going to get on your nerves really bad. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I didn't vote for him because I personally felt that, kind of like you're saying, like the demeanor and the tenor of that office. I didn't want a crass individual in that office. And when you're looking at the choices that we had, it's kind of the first time in my life that I've actually voted for a Democrat, and I held my nose personally and voted for Hillary because I thought, given the two, I thought at least she would kind of fit the role a little better in terms of someone that people can respect, even though I didn't trust her at all. So, but sometimes you don't want someone in those positions that, like, you want someone in that position that can actually be, knows how to play hardball, I guess.
Steady this. Yeah, sure.
Like,
yeah, I think that's true. I think the majority of people, or at least the people that I've talked to that did vote for Trump, and there's a lot. I mean, I have a lot.
I have family that
amazing,
have, yeah.
Dude. I'm positive that immediate family members of mine, people that I grew up in the same house with, voted for Trump, but what they voted for was exactly what you're describing. They wanted strength. They wanted leadership. They wanted somebody who was no bullshit and knew how to get things done, which they saw that in him. They perceived that in him. They perceived that he was a strong business person and that he knew how to make decisions and he knew how to do deals and, the whole thing that he sold, right? They perceived all of that. What I don't think they signed up for was a dick.
Yeah.
And now they're going, wow, hey,
what a dick.
we didn't mean that strong, bro. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like we wanted that firebrand kind of thing, but we didn't want you to be a complete asshole when people started dying by the dozens, And so I think that's where the divergence now is happening, where you have people, at least in my family, that are going, yeah, I voted for the guy, but I ain't going to do it again. We need, whether Joe Biden is mentally up for the task or not, he can at least be a nice guy, and he knows how government works, and he arguably has gotten things done his entire life since being a 28-year-old senator or 23-year-old senator, or whatever the hell it was when he first entered politics, So that's where I see people starting to cross the line again, cross the picket line, as it were, over to the other side and going, yeah, well, I was all for the things that he campaigned on, but I wasn't for having a complete jerk off,
Well,
when
and
it came to the empathy part.
The surprising part, how he won, is really those Rust Belt states. I mean, so many other states were very predictable, right? And
Right.
but those Rust Belt states that voted for Obama twice went for Trump.
Right.
And when you look back at the campaign of that, you really have no one to blame but Hillary, because she didn't visit any of those states once.
No, she thought she had it locked.
She took them for granted because they're union blue collar workers,
right.
and they're going to vote for Democrat. There's no way they're not going to. They went for Obama twice.
They've always been blue states.
I'm going to go down to Florida more often, and I'm going to work on that. Right. But that's where he went all the time. Like, he was up there and he went
and preached her gospel.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring your jobs back.
Yes.
I'm going to be more blue collar than she could ever hope to be. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And
you know what, though?
They said, sign me the fuck up.
I believe that he believes that, because he's also kind of, likes to take on China. And he's been talking about China for so long, like as a trade from a business thing. If there's one thing that, I do believe he knows, it's business. I don't see his bankruptcies that he's done as necessarily failures as much as they are selfish
strategic business
moves. That's what you do.
Anybody who's ever filed bankruptcy knows that.
Yeah, it's not because you failed; it's because you don't want to pay the debt.
Exactly.
So you file bankruptcy and you form another company and you move on, and guess what? No more debt. Like,
right.
So that's pretty ruthless.
Yeah, rich people do that all the time as a matter of course.
Yeah, and quite frankly, like, maybe we need to do that to China a little bit. Like, they hold a lot of debt. Like,
declare bankruptcy.
Yeah, just no, we're not going to pay that.
Yeah, sorry.
So, and he's the kind of guy that would do that. I believe that.
Right.
And so,
true.
some people looked at that and they're like, okay, but at the same time, he has a very, very traditional blue collar argument that typically goes with the Democratic Party for those business arguments. And and he still does.
He said that.
Yeah.
He said that on the debate stage.
He did.
In the primary.
He did.
He said, look, I've been a Democrat my whole life.
Yeah.
They failed us.
Yeah.
So here I am.
All this other stuff to me is just, it's politics as usual. It's, it's when you're in a campaign and it's a primary, you say the worst things possible about people in your own party because you're trying to get the nomination. And, Democrats and Republicans you can find sound bites of them. Republicans saying horrible things about Trump, Democrats saying horrible things about Biden, Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Because that's what you do in a camp, because you're fighting.
You're fighting. Yeah.
But then everybody comes together and it's like, she said some of the most ruthless things about Biden, which I think stuck, actually.
Yes. And we're absolutely 100% true.
Yeah. And now he's, they're like,
now he's the best warrior, the greatest fighter for people to ever live since Clark Kent. Yeah. It's a game, man. My dad worked in Washington D.C. for years. I've talked about this on the podcast before. He worked he was in the Clinton administration, and he says all the time, which he didn't invent this quote, but he heard it every day there. Politics is Hollywood for ugly people. It's true. It's just all a big show. It's a big fucking show. It's a clown car in the sense that, not in the clown car in the sense that people use that, that vernacular against Trump, but it's a clown car in the sense that Chuck Schumer and John McCain for years showed up in the same car, got out, fought, got in the same car, and went back to Ruth's Chris and had dinner.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. It's just like any other industry, strange bedfellows, And
this show that we're doing right now, and this is why we're doing this conversation. We have yet to really talk about music a little bit, but this is what I lament that we don't have anymore, is that people can talk about these issues, agree, disagree, find things you agree about and what the other person say, and you start from places of agreement and you respect what the other person is saying and you build out from there. Because I think most people will find that most people are in agreement about more things than they're in about a disagreement about things.
Mm-hmm.
And And I think you were right when we were talking. You said, I think you and I are one of the only ones that can have this kind of a conversation. And we will get to the music aspect of a lot of this stuff. But, and I like to think that we're modeling what people need to do when you have conversations like this, whether it's on your Facebook wall or on social media or actual conversations in person or live or with Zoom or whatever. And if there's any way we as a society are going to kind of get more hopeful and talk about things and get better, it's only going to come about from talking and from getting to know each other and from not hating each other, and not making the assumption that because you and I, who are not on the same page politically, if you were going to check the boxes on a check sheet,
right? Yeah.
But at the same time, we're not going to
caucus. We're not going to caucus together anytime soon.
Probably not. No, but we're not sitting here going, "You racist, evil a-hole, right, blah blah blah. I want you out of my life. You're the problem of the earth." Like it just,
the identity thing for you and I is a non-starter. It doesn't. We don't do that to each other. It's. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that they can't have conversations like this because they get branded as somebody who is a boomer, or they can't have a conversation with some. That's bullshit, man. There are people of all ages. I've got a really. We're not friends like you and I are friends, but I know a guy named Aaron, who's a songwriter, producer in Los Angeles, great kid. And he's in his early 20s, I think. And I can have a rational conversation like I'm having with you with him. And he's a young kid, just starting his career. And he's fucking smart. And he thinks. And he thinks for himself, And he has a very... we don't agree on every single thing, but he's way farther to the left of the spectrum, like I am, than he is to the right. And I don't agree with everything that he believes, and he probably doesn't either with me. But at least we can have a conversation, and when we can walk away going, "Yeah, it was a good talk, man. I see some of your viewpoints. I get it. I get why you feel that way. I'll have to think about that." But we are not cussing each other out or hanging up the phone on each other or unfriending each other on Facebook or doing any of the things that people do. And he's a young guy, and I'm 45, And that's the other thing is perspective, All that being said, you and I are 45-year-old adults with little kids in the house, married for a while, some of us twice, like we've lived some fucking life, And so we're going to look at things differently than your average 23-year-old who doesn't have any assets, doesn't own a house, doesn't have 20 years of career behind them yet. They will. And who's to say that their viewpoints won't change and evolve and, and be more fluid and look a little bit more either ambiguous or defined in 22 years of living, Yeah. It's... People, I think, they want so badly to be heard and they want so badly to be understood rather than wanting to understand what's happening, And if you can have a conversation with somebody, if you can listen for a second and let them finish their point before you talk, which I'm not great at, but I try, that's everything. You'll learn so much more by giving them that 15% more time to finish what they're trying to say so that you can have an accurate interpretation of what it is they're actually trying to convey,
One thing
it's just lost.
Yeah. One thing I've seen a couple times that I've respected what Bernie has done is there's a couple times when he's been, this is back in the primary stuff when he was, they hadn't picked their candidate yet. And he's speaking, and some protesters were in the audience and yelling at him about whatever they were yelling at him for. Like, I can't imagine who's protesting Bernie because they weren't Republicans. They were like further left than Bernie.
Further left than Bernie,
yeah,
which is pretty left. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
that's like falling into the ocean left.
I know. Yeah. So, but they're up there protesting about something.
Mm-hmm.
And he stopped what he was saying and invited them on stage and said,
gave him the mic.
Speak your point.
Yep.
I'm here to listen. Speak your point.
That was a Black Lives Matter thing.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So, and that totally diffuses them there to interrupt, because then he's not going to let them. The best way to keep them from interrupting you is to stop what you're doing and give them the mic where they're not interrupting you. They're actually, okay, say what you got to say.
Yeah. And you know what's the crazy thing about that?
Yeah.
Is that the people who shouted that down the loudest were Democrats. He should not relent the microphone when he's making a point. You should respect, and then 3 weeks later, everybody's out in the streets rioting and throwing shit through the Apple Store windows, It's just, the inconsistency, I think, is what bothers me the most.
Yeah.
Of people's viewpoints and opinions on all of these things that we're talking about is like, just be consistent, just be consistent. And that goes down to the core of science as much as it goes down to your own viewpoints on life and politics and the civil discourse. Can you just be consistent? If you can be consistent, there's a lot of examples, but one that I've always thought about is just science-based things. If you're going to believe that evolution is accurate science, then you also have to believe that biology is biology, and that, you have to question, is it really true to say that sex and gender mean nothing, that it's just a social construct, I don't know, because I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything about science. I failed science just like I failed everything but band, right? So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know enough about it. But I just have to question myself about that when I get, when I get really up on my high horse about things, and I think, well, wait a second. My consistencies are, what my beliefs are inconsistent in some things, and I have to question myself and ask myself, is that really accurate? Do I believe that because I believe it, because I know it to be true? Or do I believe it just because I heard somebody say it and it sounds like the PC thing and the right way to go,
Yeah.
And through all of this, I've really asked myself that question, I am not excited to vote for Joe Biden at all, by any means. I'm going to do it because I dislike Trump even more, But I don't necessarily think that Joe's going to be a good president. I think he'll be a nicer guy, for sure. But his policies don't really accurately reflect, I think, a progressive tone. They're making all this big stink about him being, the most progressive. Even Bernie, I don't know what he's smoking. Even he could possibly be the most progressive president since FDR. Says who? When has he ever done anything progressive at all?
I believe they're saying that because of the people that see. I don't believe
they're trying to get Bernie's fans in there to vote for him.
Yeah, but I honestly don't believe Joe Biden is necessarily in control of the message that he's putting out there. I
don't either. I believe he can't even convey the message he's supposed to put out. We're gonna get so much mail from this.
Okay. I believe he is the centrist polish, because he's never been a far left progressive. There's a further left progressive base under him that needs a front man, so to speak, that is not far left progressive. I think it's actually more so than Trump. If he gets elected, it'll be the first time when his position becomes literally not in control of a whole lot. He will be the salesman.
He's the token.
Yeah,
tokenism.
He will be the one in charge of convincing everybody that this is the right thing and to sell it, because it's coming from him, the guy that's been in Washington for 50 years, as a mainstream politician, Democrat, not very far left, kind of a centrist guy. But the people really running the show and really making policy decisions and really, okay, Joe, this is what we're going with. Learn the script.
Right.
And
he's the Steve Jobs of the whole thing.
Yeah. And so then, everybody in control is really going to be much further left. And Biden's just, and there are a lot of people believe that. And I'm not so sure that I don't believe that, because I don't believe he is aggressive enough to ward off the angrier far left people that are under him. And and I just don't think he can stand up to them, and I think they know that. So I think ultimately he's being used by the far left to make him more appealing, to make that choice,
I think,
more palatable to those people in the middle who don't know him as a far left guy, and so they'll go ahead and vote for him because he's much more likable than Trump.
Well, the right has done, or the Republicans, I should say, have done something incredibly brilliant in that Trump doesn't necessarily satisfy their agenda in the way that they hoped either. And so a lot of them are, you got the Never Trumper and the Lincoln Project guys, and all this stuff, and you're seeing parts of that party sort of break off and fall into the ocean of
Kasich. I was a Kasich guy, if you recall, and he's freaking talking on the Democratic thing,
exactly.
Right? So.
But I even feel like, I watched his speech, which was pretty good. But then I saw him on Bill Maher last night or the night before. It was the night after he spoke, so Friday, I guess. And he just came off as so opportunistic. Bill, I was actually on the forefront of that. If you'll remember back 10 years ago when I was governor of, wherever the fuck, Ohio. And I spearheaded that movement, and it was just like, dude, you're running for 2024.
They're all running for.
That's what this is.
I think Romney's going to run again.
You don't give a shit about the Democrat president. Yeah. You want to be president. Yeah. So it's like trying to decipher, Romney too, being the outside. He's the outsider now. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
The guy that votes against everything that, he was the Jeff, the Jeff Flake of the current cropping of, where Jeff Flake was like, I'll vote against it. I don't give a shit. I'm out of here in 20 days anyway. Who cares? Yeah. So it's like, it's just, and it's not just the people on the Republican side, the Democrats too. It's so tokenistic of how they want to be portrayed going into the next political cycle. Because they know that Biden pretty much has at least the Democratic side locked up. He's the nominee now officially, so he definitely has a lock on that. So it's going to be Trump or Biden in November, but who's it going to be in 2024? Well, here's my opportunity, And so it's frustrating, man. It's like, a lot of people in the last 6-7 months have gotten to, geez, Deane, are you a Republican now? No, I'm not. I'm a Democrat through and through. But I want the fucking Democrats to quit sabotaging themselves by being idiots.
I think we would be wise to discuss California AB 5.
Yes.
And there are national implications to this, by the way. So, we had talked when we did this show originally, and maybe for those that don't know, California Assembly Bill 5 is a new law that was passed. It went through the legislature last year and was signed.
Early.
Yeah. And was signed into law by Gavin Newsom to go into effect January 1st. This came out of a case from a trucking company called Dynamex. And what Dynamex did was they fired all of their truck drivers and then recontracted with them as independent contractors, so that ultimately it would be cheaper for the company, because then they wouldn't have to pay payroll taxes and everything else.
Benefits.
They ultimately paid the truckers a little bit more money, to be honest. And quite frankly, a lot of truckers are independent truckers anyway. A lot of them own their own rigs. They go, it's like that trucking show that tried to make a show of it, where people like bid for, I can drive that.
It's honestly just like us. It's literally a buyout situation.
Yeah.
We have our own rigs. We have our own studios. The studios, the film studios pay composers a buyout, and you handle all the expenses yourself, and you're an independent 1099 contractor.
Yeah, and you deliver final product. Chunk of money, final product.
Right.
So, and there are some trucking companies, companies that have the drivers as employees. But for the most part, Dynamex is a shipping company, and they wanted to go to this model because it's not like they invented the model. It's just, we can save money as a company doing this, and the truckers will make a little bit more money, but we're gonna treat them independently. So some of the Dynamex truckers were upset about this because they lost some of those benefits of the payroll tax stuff, benefits for unemployment if they lose their job, everything else. And they took them to court over it. And ultimately it went to the California Supreme Court. And the California Supreme Court ultimately said they used now truck drivers are under a union wage order. So there is a wage order that describes labor law, and there's even one for the entertainment industry. There's for all these jobs that are unionized jobs. They use the definition of wage order 9, I believe it deals with truck drivers, and basically said that Dynamex has to use this wage order as the definition of their drivers, right? And they use this ABC test. So there was a test before that's been in the courts for like 30 years called Borrello. And the Borrello test came out of another case called Borrello. And the Borrello test basically said, if you follow this, this, and this, you are an employee. If not, you're an independent contractor. But the thing about Borrello is you didn't have to meet all of the requirements. You looked at all the requirements, and then you step back and you look at the big picture, and you still say, yeah, but they're still a composer on a film by film basis. They're not really hired to be full time at the studio. They don't work at the studio. They're using their own gear. So you pass the test, you can be an independent contractor. The court said that the Borrello test did not apply to these drivers, and they used an ABC test, which they didn't invent. Like the ABC test had been used before in other cases, but they applied the ABC test, and the ABC test essentially is a much clearer black and white definition of, is the work you're doing in the same line as work as the person hiring you? And, how do they pay you and all this other stuff? If yes, you're an employee, and you have in the ABC test meet every part of the A, B, and C part of that test. Otherwise, you are defaulted to an independent contractor, you're defaulted to an employee. If you don't meet the requirements, you're assumed an employee. If you meet all these requirements, you can still be an independent contractor. And that test is so easy, cut and dry to fail. In almost every scenario where it's applied, you will be termed an employee, not an independent contractor.
Yeah, it's almost designed to skew that direction on purpose.
So getting back to the California legislature, they now this may seem political, and I'm not trying to be political, but California, if you understand the politics in California is a pretty blue state. The Democrats in the state of California have a super majority, and the Republicans pretty much can't do squat. So they, there's like 12 of them or something like that. Like they can't, they literally don't have the votes. If every Republican voted against it, the Democrats sit there like like the Monty Python guys at the top of the tower, and phooey on you. I farted in your general direction,
Right?
And they still pass whatever they want to pass anyway. The Republicans can't do anything. So the Democrats, pretty much with their supermajority, decided they would use this case, the Dynamics case, and write Assembly Bill 5. Lorena Gonzalez is the assembly member who authored this law, pushed it through, and would redefine employment in the entire state of California based on Assembly Bill 5, the language in Assembly Bill 5. And yet they're arguing is that they're making this like the California Supreme Court made this decision. We're just codifying this into law. And I disagree with that argument because the California decision was specifically about Wage Order 9 and drivers, right? They didn't intend this to be for every profession. It was about these drivers in this specific case, which dealt with Work Order number 9, which dealt with truck drivers, right? They weren't intending this to be for everybody.
As a matter of fact, as far as I understand it, it was so specific to truck drivers that even delivery personnel as a global category was excluded from the decision. So in other words, you have, like, let's say you order a package from DHL, but you live out in the boonies somewhere and they don't deliver out there. They could apply a third-party carrier to bring you that package as a subcontractor and still be okay under this law, whereas an employee of DHL is an employee of DHL.
Yeah.
So it's very specific to truck drivers.
Yes. So this law decided to take that example of the ABC test and make all employment in the state of California, you are defaulted to be assumed an employee, have to be hired as an employee, have to be paid through a payroll company on a W-2. Your person hiring you has to pay unemployment insurance, workers' comp insurance, all those extra costs that 1099 independent contractors don't have,
right? Unless
you pass this ABC test, which is virtually unpassable. Like there are certain scenarios where you can pass it. So like my profession is music. If I want to hire someone to paint the room behind me, painting is not in the same profession as my job, is not my music. So I can hire an independent contractor painter to come in, paint the room and go away because that job is not in the business of music. But if I want to hire someone to help produce my music, like
an arranger, contract, orchestra contractor,
if I have a specific score on one movie or even one cue that I want to use guitar and I'm not a guitarist, I want to hire a guitarist to look over my parts, make sure they make sense for a guitarist to play. I want to throw that guitarist $100, $150, $300, whatever it is that makes sense for that, to look over this one cue and say, does this look right for a guitarist? Does this make sense? Can you help me on the Sibelius part for this cue with the guitarist? And then that independent contractor person now is doing music that is in my category of what my work does. Correct. So for that one little job, I now have to bring that person on as a full-time employee of my company, of me, the person. I have to pay the workers' comp. I have to pay unemployment insurance and everything for that one person, which financially doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The insurance companies are not set up to do workers' comp that way. They are not, the cost of me going through a payroll company to pay $150, $300
the economic ramifications on you as a sole proprietor or LLC are astronomical.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not sustainable at all.
It's not
for most people.
It's not sustainable. And so but you can go down all the professions and, there's equally concerning things about AB5 to all those professions. Interpreters are having a huge issue with this now because a hospital may have interpreters as employees that speak Spanish because they deal with that all the time. People come into the ER, they're Spanish speaking. Right. They need to communicate with the doctors quickly, right? And so they have a Spanish speaker who comes down and can interpret for them. What if someone here is on vacation gets in a car accident, has to go to the hospital, and they speak Dutch.
Right.
Right. The USC Keck emergency room hospital probably does not have a Dutch interpreter on staff. So they quickly make a phone call and they sit to a service that provides that and says, we need a Dutch interpreter over here.
Somebody
Stats,
over here
like
now.
someone in 30 minutes, quick.
Right.
And they do that. They have a means to do that. The way the law is written now, the hospital has to make the Dutch interpreter a full-time employee. Or not say full. I don't want to say full-time. You can be a W2
employee, part-time, whatever.
Full-time. But a W2 employee that has all the benefits of an employee, which is onloading the costs of the insurance stuff, the workers' comp, everything, paying through a payroll service for that one employee that comes in for that one patient in the ER for 5 hours.
Yeah, and technically all of that administration needs to be done before that person's sneakers hit the floor of that emergency room.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're in violation. They're in non-compliance.
Yep.
And there's penalties.
Yep. And that's the penalties are the problem with all of this. So there is no grace period. There is no case that where you get a slap on the wrist. So your first violation of it is basically a $10,000 fine. And if there's more than one instance of you hiring more than one, like I hire a guitarist and an air hoop player or something like that, right? I hire two people. That's considered a pattern. And now I can be up for a $25,000 fine for misclassifying my workers, not as employees, but as independent contractors. And that kind of a fine is something that businesses just can't take on. And any lawyer, my lawyer has told me, just do not hire independent contractors. Don't hire people that way to do it.
What are you supposed to
at
do
all.
then?
Yeah. You can't do it. You either bring them, it's the risk. And the EDD department is the department in charge of enforcing this, essentially. And now they already enforce people. Like there are already laws in the books, Barillo, that I discussed about bringing employees if they're an employee or they're an independent contractor. The problem, again, with Barillo is you didn't have to meet all the requirements. You could look at this for the broad picture and say, but that Dutch interpreter is not needed to be an employee. They literally did 5 hours of work and then they were done.
Right. They need them one time every out of every 4 years for 3 hours. Yeah.
Exactly. And same thing with me. Like I'm, a guitarist. Every score doesn't have guitar, but I just needed it for that the three cues that had guitar, and that was it. Right. So it doesn't make sense that I have to be an employee. If you're a composer assistant, you should be an employee. Right. You're like showing up to work all the time. I get that. But there are scenarios where we as music professionals still need to hire independent. So this
Absolutely. I mean, it's double for you as a composer, because you not only are you hiring somebody to look over that part for you and make sure that everything's perfect so that George Deering can play it on Friday. You can't even hire George Deering.
Well, yeah,
because he's right. I mean, if George Deering wasn't a unionized player and he was just an independent contractor, you couldn't, right? You couldn't. Is that correct?
Well, that's the rub, right? So when you hire
so you're screwed twice.
When you hire a union player to play for you, the union player, because of the nature of the union contract and everything else, goes through a payroll company and they are paid as a W-2 employee. So union players are considered employees. Thus, you can continue to hire all the union players you want. But an independent player coming over to, can you play 3 violin cues for me? I'll throw you, $300 for an hour, and you do these 3 little cues. You can't come over and perform on my score for that as a non-union person, because you are in the business of music. I'm in the business of music. You're adding your performance to my music product. It's in the same category as what my job is.
So it essentially benefits the union. Now, here's the part where I ask the question, the Perry Mason question that I already know the answer to before I ask the question. Prosecutor Hamilton Berger, what is the background of this Lorena Gonzalez, and where did she come from, and why has she got such a hard-on for
you're going to love
bill?
this.
Yeah, I know.
She was a union organizer for the Teamsters.
Yes!
Before becoming a politician. So
ding, 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 ding.
So pre-pandemic, like turn of the January, all that stuff, I was pretty hard in the lobbying for changes to AB5, if not for AB5 to be repealed immediately, which is never going to happen in the supermajority state that we're in, but like for there to be exemptions or changes. Now, there are professions that got exemptions in AB5.
This is the craziest part to me. This is the craziest part. You read through that list.
Lawyers are exempted. Doctors are exempted, right? Like there are
welders and weird shit like
fishermen.
Yeah. I read through that list and I went, wait, people do that for a living? What the fuck?
All of those jobs that got exemptions in the bill from the start have lobbyists who are, quite frankly, even union lobbyists, but lobbyists with the AFL-CIO connections and everything else to say, hey, most doctors are not employees of the hospitals. They have rights to, and as a patient, like you get a hospital bill and then you get a doctor bill for the physician that was doing your thing through a different payroll or a invoicing service.
Right.
Because the doctors are their own business. Most doctors are, Dr. Deane, LLC, whatever. Right. That's your job. And so, doctors got an exemption. Lawyers got an exemption. There were exemptions made.
Sculptors got an exemption.
Yeah.
Sculptors.
Journalists.
Let me say that again. Sculptors.
It's a big sculptor lobby.
Man. I'm telling you.
So, journalists had this weird thing where they were like, because a lot of journalists, they're not a full-time employee for the Hollywood Reporter.
Right. They're all independent.
John Burlingame writes for Film, Music, and Variety. He's an independent writer. They don't need a film music writer on staff full time. He doesn't write enough about that. He ramps up during award season, and then he does special columns rest of the year. He's a specialist. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now, so they had this weird rule, like he could only do 35 submissions to anybody a year as an independent contractor, right? And once he does 35, then you can't work anymore.
Because 36 would be...
Yeah, they changed. They did some research with the union input, of course. The union input.
Sure.
It said, anything over 35, then...
anything really over 35 and he's stealing the job from one of our people.
Exactly. And guess who was one of the big lobbyists at the table about musicians? AFM. The AFM was lobbying Lorena Gonzalez hardcore about musicians. And the reason musicians did not get an exemption in AB5 as passed was because the AFM and the RAA and other people at that table could not agree. And the legislators said, well, phooey on you guys. They got out, left the room, figuratively, said, you guys argue it out. This is what we're going with now. And then AB5 passed, and there was no musician exemption, which effectively meant January 1st, when this law went into law, musicians everywhere had to be an employee of essentially the person hiring them. So if you have a 4-member band, normally, let's say a bar hires a band to play on Friday night, right? The bar can do that in some cases because the bar could argue, well, their job is to provide drinks, not to provide music. So they could.
We're not an entertainment venue. We're a restaurant.
Exactly. Unless you're like the Viper Room or Whiskey A Go Go, and then you're built around a
feature.
Where it's a feature, right? So that would be a different argument. But let's just say you're, like some restaurant that wants to have a band play jazz on Friday nights. You could actually hire the band. But the band, usually what they do is they talk with the band leader. It's probably the drummer or the singer.
Probably.
Or someone.
And make all the choices.
Yeah, and say, okay, I want to hire the band. He's okay, great. I'll call the guys and we'll come play Friday night. And then the restaurant will pay $500, let's just say, to the guy they're dealing with. And then the guy will turn around and cut a check $100 to each one of his bandmates. Right. And so everybody get their $100 for their 1-hour gig of playing jazz at the restaurant. The way the law is written, the band leader paying those band members would have to make the band members his employee.
Right.
He would have to do all that through a payroll company, W-2 them, provide workers' comp and unemployment insurance and all that other stuff to the guitarist and the singer and the bass guitarist and everything else in his band. There's no way that was going to work. It's not sustainable, and it's going to kill the music industry. And so I want to jump a little more current on all this. So that's where we stood on January 1. And of course, the musicians were all up in an uproar about this, and the AFM was not relenting because they want musicians to unionize. Of course. They exist already. It's not like a new union's trying to be created.
This has been a battle that's been going on for 15, 20 years now.
Yeah. This is not about
just another way they think they can make it happen.
Yeah, and this is not only about Uber Lyft, by the way. People think this is the Uber Lyft thing.
That's one thing that I wanted to bring up. The way that this got snuck through, in my view, I don't think that Gavin Newsom signed this going, yeah, I know this is fucking over tons of people, but I don't care. I don't think he's that diabolical. I don't think he's an evil guy, right? I don't know much about him. I don't live in California anymore. I haven't for years, but whatever. I just have a hard time believing, like you said about, any politician. I don't think they are gunning for the demise of our country. I don't think Newsom's necessarily gunning for the demise of freelance, work. But so I do see how this happened. It was probably sold as, look, all these Lyft and Uber drivers are getting screwed. They work 40, 60, 70 hours a week. They don't have any benefits. They don't have any health care. They don't have any insurance. They don't have, they have nothing. It's just, they're just, these companies are getting rich, off of the exploitation of this loose arrangement of freelance, of gig work, of the gig economy. And that's how I see it. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong about that, but it looks like it was teased through under the guise of, hey, we're protecting workers. This is for the workers. It was a total Trojan horse situation in a way.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for, there's something here that I want to show you. Let me see. Here it is. So there is a UC Berkeley law professor named Veena Dubal, and she is kind of the legal brain behind the language of AB5. So if you follow Twitter at all, Lorena Gonzalez and Veena Dubal is a very interesting Twitter account that's like private. You can't really see it, but somehow screen captures of these things still leak out, of course.
Sure, right.
And this was something read back when AB5 passed. Now, Veena Dubal is a labor rights attorney.
Do you have it there? Can you put it on your screen real quick? Can you share your...
I do. So Veena Dubal is a pretty far left politically, labor rights attorney, teaches at UC Berkeley, is all about labor law, unions, right? She's found a friend in Lorena Gonzalez through this whole thing. And
wow, look at that quote.
I know. So the quote says, and she said this right after AB5 passed, I hope the short-term pain caused by a labor shakeup across hundreds of industries will be worth the recentering of worker power. Not one mention of Uber, one mention of Lyft, specifically acknowledges across hundreds of industries and worker power, which is a union thing, right? I mean, that's what. And when I was in Sacramento lobbying legislators and talking with this, we were in the office of many Democratic senator people talking with their legal advisors, and in some case, the actual senators. We were told specifically this law was passed because the unions want it. Unions are very much in control of a lot of Democratic Party policy making. It's a huge lobbying wing of what the Democrats listen to. And they feel they wanted a sea change of union participation across all industries because unions are losing power. They're losing to the gig economy. They're losing, right?
Things change, man.
And we've talked on this podcast about how the AFM can't compete globally with orchestras in other countries and everything else
for decades, and they won't give it up.
Yeah,
for decades, we've lost. We've lost. It's gone. It's fucking gone, man.
Yeah,
and they still. It's like, dude.
So this ultimately, AB5 is about this. It is about unions wanting, and independent contractors in the United States cannot unionize. Right?
That's against the law. It's literally against the law.
Yeah, that's independent businesses colluding with each other, right, over price fixing or whatever you want to call it. But if you redefine all of those people and all those jobs as not independent contractors, but force them to be defined and seen by the law as employees, now all of a sudden they can be unionized. And
it's just another, dude. It's this so simple. It's another example of many where a dinosaur paradigm such as the AFFM, which I've been a member, you've been a member, all of our friends have been members, was very good to me for years, but dude, it's a dead concept. And I say that as a very left-leaning Democrat guy who was I'm a union believer. I think the concept is amazing. But in this day and age, it is no longer applicable to the way that business is done. We've moved so far beyond that thinking and the way that we do things and the way that we've been able to figure things out and logically construct and structure business to be applicable in a 2020 world. And they just will not let it go. It's like, I don't know. And here's the craziest thing, man. You and I have friends who serve in the leadership of the union, who serve on boards. One in particular I can think of that you and I are really close with, who's a very logical guy, and I know is in there trying to legitimately change their thinking and go, dude, you guys got to wake the fuck up here. This is not going to work.
Yeah.
Great guy, love him to death, and one of the greatest dudes ever. And then there are other people that you and I both know who are in there that I thought, oh, good, I'm going to vote this person in. This seems like a great thing. And as soon as they got in there, it's like they just took this part of their brain and threw it across the football field and went, okay, fuck that, I don't need that anymore. And now they're so along for the ride, and it's like, man, what is it going to take? What kind of a force major, act of God situation is it going to take for some of these people to wake up and go, gosh, post-internet, we don't really have to do this anymore. There's an easier, better way that makes way more sense, that makes way more money for everybody, that takes care of everybody.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it. I don't understand what the death grip is on this fucking union thing. I don't understand it, man. Other than, obviously, there's a lot of money behind it, and there's a lot of old money, which I get because I've participated in that a little bit. We kind of came in on the tail end of that. You and I did. Yeah. So I understand it. I've played on enough records to make some money, but other than that, old God, I just, Scrooge McDuck, fucking pry it out of my dead, cold duck hands. Like, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's another screen capture. I was just trying to look for it right now, and I'm probably not going to, unless this is it. No. It's like the companion screen tweet from Rena Gonzalez to this Vina Duval one. I can't find it. I'll send it to you if I can find it. But
the Nurse Ratched graphic above Vina Duval's face is perfect. Is whoever posted that prior to her comment that's genius. That's a perfect juxtaposition there.
Isn't it though? So yeah. Anyway, this other tweet that Lorena says, someone said she had a hashtag. It said AB54 union or something like that. And this is before this is like the month AB5 was passing. Right. So she knew where the roadmap was for all this stuff.
Right.
And someone said, what does your hashtag mean? And she says, first we get AB5, then we organize workers into a union.
Oh man. Just not even trying to hide it.
Indiscriminate of what profession we're talking about. She's not talking about union
just
Uber,
in general.
Uber or Lyft or whatever. Like she was talking about, and then you combine that with Vina's thing about across hundreds of industries will be worth the pain, right? And so this is, and the musicians already have a union, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no incentive to give them an exemption, because the AFM wants this.
They're with us.
And quite frankly, Hollywood wants this. I wouldn't say the studios who are paying the bills want this, but IATSE wants this. SAG wants this. The Writers Guild wants this, because it's about getting more people into a union. If you can't be hired,
in that case, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, to a certain degree, even though I don't necessarily agree with the whole thing, those unions actually have some power. The AFM doesn't, and they haven't. Yeah. The only power they've got is to dress up in clown suits and go picket in front of fucking Sony.
Think of this. I mean,
with their contrabass.
The short film that I produced last year that we did, right? We had an entire film crew that was paid as 1099s because we were shooting for like 3 days, right? We had a 3-day shoot. We had insurance, we had permits. We did all the stuff. We were, it's all the stuff that we needed to do, but we were non-union, right?
Right.
But we had union workers. I mean, everybody was an industry person that knows what we're doing.
Yep.
And, and they got paid well. I mean, our first AD got $900,000 or something like that. But it's a short film, 3 days, right? You could not do that today because of AB5. You cannot bring on a film.
People are going to do it anyway.
They're going to do it anyway, but you know what?
I mean, that Dutch translator's at Cedar Sinai right now. I guarantee it.
But you know what?
Just get over here. We'll just take care of you.
All it takes to get caught is one person who you hired and paid as a 1099 contractor. Even if they don't intentionally report you, they all of a sudden, let's say because of, I don't know, a pandemic happens and they want to go file for unemployment. They file, and unemployment says, who was the last person you worked for? And in the instructions for that, it doesn't say who was the last person that paid you a W-2 check.
Right.
It says who was the last person.
Who was the last income that you received?
I just got off a short film doing hair and makeup, and for these people, and they paid me $1,500. Okay, and then EDD, as part of your unemployment, is going to try to process that claim as a regular unemployment claim, and they will go and they will look at that person that hired you for hair and makeup for $1,500 and say, wait, hold on, they paid you as a 1099, not as a W-2. Was that proper? And the EDD will open up an investigation. And this is not fiction. I know people that this has happened to. And so they will open up an investigation. And now they're going to come after the film production company, which is doing a short film, non-commercial, literally trying to make a calling card for themselves, right? For 2 or 3 days. And they will want to bring up that production company or the producers or whoever signed those checks up onto charges of misclassification of workers. And because it's probably happened, right, on more than one person on that crew, it's going to be a pattern, and there's going to be a $25,000 fine per instance. If you had 30 people that you paid, you had an acting crew of like 6 people, let's say 6 actors, you had maybe 3 or 4 people in the camera crew, you had 2 lighting guys, you had 1 makeup person, you had one gaffer person, all this other stuff. All of a sudden you're going to have 20, 30 people, and they're going to fine you $25,000 per misclassification. Plus, you're going to have to go back and pay them as employees. You're going to have to pay their workers' comp insurance in retrospect. You're going to have to pay the unemployment insurance to catch them up. And then you're going to have to pay all these fines.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question that just popped into my head when you were talking about all the added stuff there. And if this is a naive question and we've already, I just missed the point, then just shut it down. But how much of this do you think has to do with taxation and the fact that the majority of the state that we happen to be talking about? Because I think it's very weird that other states didn't go, oh, wow, that worked great. Let's do that.
Well, they are.
And I know there's some talk about that, and I know that we can get into the federal part because that's actually pretty important, especially with the upcoming election. But I just think it's odd that one state out of the union has so far implemented this to the degree that it's caused so many problems that I have to wonder, like, okay, what is obviously the union thing's an important component specifically to her and the people that are leading the charge against this. But also, I think about the average 1099 freelance person, Now, I've always been really careful about getting my taxes filed on time because I'm afraid. I'm afraid not to. Like, I don't file an extension. I don't do any of that shit, man. I get it done. I have an accountant. She's on it. I give her all my stuff way in advance. Like, as soon as the year turns over, man, I start bugging people for my tax forms and, hey, send me my shit, so I can turn in my stuff. And, I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid of that system. That's the one government entity. The IRS is the one, because I had, people in my family who've had issues and stuff, and I watched them. I'm like, oh, Jesus. So, but I do know a lot of my fellow musicians who are a little bit more lackadaisical about it. And I filed an extension. I got to do my October thing now. And I do the self-employment quarterly thing because I'm so afraid of undershooting and then having to owe a bunch of shit. And, so what I wonder is how much of this has to do more with, hey, let's move all the tax stuff under one roof, the union, so that we just have to bug one person for our money, and we don't have to hunt down all these little 1099 people, and we have to go through all that shit. We can eliminate thousands of jobs having to track down all these tax evader people and all these entertainment guys.
I think those are the arguments made to the fellow legislators. I think folks like Vina Dubal, who is a lawyer, and then Lorena Gonzalez, who's the author of the law, and some of her legislative, buddies, they truly have a union agenda at heart, because they admit it. They literally admit it.
Right.
It's been told to me to my face.
Yeah.
But you can't get every legislature in the state necessarily to have that same agenda, right? They're specifically passionate about it because of their background and where they come from and everything else. The argument that's made to the legislators is a tax argument. That's how you get everybody else to go along with it, is you say, look, these are payroll taxes that we're going to be able to collect. And,
much easier.
Yeah. And look at the poor people as independent contractors and Uber drivers and musicians or whatever who can't file for unemployment. Now their employer will be properly paying into unemployment, and then they'll be able to file for unemployment. And and Lorena Gonzalez shamelessly, when the pandemic happened, you could count a second, and the tweet already came out of her mouth as to this pandemic only proves that AB5 is needed at this time. It's like, don't use the pandemic for your political agenda. But that's what she does, because she's trying to make the argument to get more people to go along with it, that this is about unemployment and this is about taking it.
Right.
But it's not.
They probably have 7 or 8 different scenarios that they can just plug into any conversation that's appropriate.
Whoever they're talking to, if they're talking to someone who's not a union person, that stuff doesn't even come up. It starts to come up with, the unemployment and the pandemic and all these people are hurt, and don't we want them to be able to get.
So what is her ready-made verbiage for when somebody like you goes up to, which I know you've spoke at the Capitol. I watched on the news. You're very involved in this. So what is her plug-in for somebody like you who says, hey, this makes no sense for musicians. You don't understand our business. Clearly, this was not thought. You didn't. Maybe understandably, maybe not, whatever. The fact of the matter is the result of this does not benefit us at all, and it has nothing to do with how we operate. You don't understand the situation. This needs to be fixed for us. Why are we not on that list of exemptions? What is her plug-in response to that?
She has a few of them. If you're on Twitter and you challenge her on it, you're a bot. You're not a live person. You're a bot who's just challenging her. If you challenge her in other social media venues, she literally says you're a Trumper, you're a racist, you're whatever, because quite frankly, most Republicans are very, leave me alone type people. Government, get out of stop telling me how to run my business type people. Right, and you will probably not find one Republican who's for AB5. And, I said this on the steps of the state capitol. I said, I've never seen an issue in my recent memory that has brought more people together from both sides of the aisle in California than the hatred over AB5. I mean, most people that I talk to, especially in the entertainment industry, who hate this law are not anywhere near a Republican Trump supporter. And yet Lorena Gonzalez likes to categorize the people who hate the law as you're just you're a Trump person, whatever. And it's like, you're not listening to us. That's not what we're saying. So
your narrative doesn't align with her union agenda. Yeah. So you're persona non grata immediately.
Exactly. So, I actually got to chat with her specifically, and via Twitter chat. I didn't have a phone call. It was a typed chat thing, but it was a back and forth. It wasn't just like I sent her a message and I didn't get a response. We actually had a back and forth. And I told her, I said, this is the same argument that goes back to why composers are not unionized, which we've talked a lot about on here. It goes back to the Elmer Bernstein case. And it goes back, the reason we don't have a union is because we are declared independent contractors by the federal government.
Right. And
the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution, federal law, even a statute, will always outweigh or come first before a state law, even in the state's constitution. So everything federal outweighs anything state.
Right.
End of story. That's
and we've been classified or categorized as
by a federal entity, the National Labor Relations Board,
right,
as an independent contractor since the early 80s, which then means California law as written for composers and songwriters and lyricists is now in conflict with federal law.
So what is the doesn't that just nullify it right then and there?
No, because California law can do whatever they want and they can fight it out in the courts. But I was successful.
So the federal law doesn't mean shit?
Well, not until you challenge it. Right? You go to court and you challenge it and you make the argument and you say federal law declares this is this, and then a court or a judge would have to say California state law, you don't apply. If California wants to try to enforce it, they absolutely could. And then someone would have to take them to court and say, no, this doesn't apply to me because federally we're independent contractors. So, but
clearly I also smoked a dope during civics class. So I don't, that seems totally backwards to me. If the federal law is first and foremost and it was passed before the state law, then the state law comes along and changes that. It seems like the state law shouldn't apply until the federal law is resolved.
It doesn't apply, but it doesn't apply not because we say so. It would have to be a court that would affirm the federal statute.
I've got a little gig worker of my own banging on the door here. Hang on. Talk amongst yourself for a second. What? What, you? What? He came to give me my sunglasses because it's time to go surfing.
Oh, good. They match the wall behind you.
Yeah.
So anyway, it doesn't apply, but it doesn't. You can't just say that law doesn't apply to me. Like if California wants to try to enforce it, no, that's employment law here. they can, and until you get a judge or a court to essentially say, no, you're right, California, you're wrong, right? It's so,
Yeah. Got it.
or you try to lobby and convince a legislature to build an exemption in for you where it didn't exist before.
Mhm.
Well, I know, at least from my chat with Assemblymember Gonzalez, she had not heard this argument before. She had not, and I was able to point her to the case and to the labor law, to the actual specific case, and to read the case and I was able to point her that. And when I met with people in Sacramento, I had paperwork that I was leaving with everybody, and Assemblymember Maritsuchi, who represents kind of the South area, Torrance area of LA and everything. We met with him and some of the other individuals there, and I handed them this case precedent as well. Now, he was a lawyer, so he understands this. Lorena Gonzalez is a lawyer herself, so they get law. And they were all like, okay, well, why doesn't the business to business exemption apply? And I would explain that because there's these other business to business exemptions in AB5 that are even more complicated. And I explained that. And lo and behold, and we haven't mentioned this yet, but Lorena Gonzalez, as the pandemic was ramping up in February and March, the state legislature was working on an exemption specifically for musicians. It's that
I saw that. I read that.
Yeah, it's that conversation that was happening that nothing got resolved, and they all just kind of walked out of the room and said, "You guys fight it out." And then that conversation kept happening, and now there were some independent musicians, doing a lot of good work. A little questionable as to why it was them, but that's okay. Doing a lot of good work, talking with the AFM in the room and trying to figure out, how to get that scenario where the band of 4 people playing at a restaurant or a bar once a week, how do they still function and not have to make their band members employees? Like, that's kind of ridiculous, right?
Yeah,
this whole thing, I can understand why the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra needs to be paid as an employee,
of course,
but not Joe's band every once a month.
Normie Nostril and his nose picker 9. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they hashed out all this musician stuff, but there were no composers in that room. I mean, you could argue that the band guys are songwriters and that they care, but no one's going to bat the composers. Well, they came out with that the wording in that musician exemption, and lo and behold, it listed composers, songwriters, and lyricists as being exempted from AB5. And I have to think that, my talking with Ms. Gonzalez and pointing her in the right direction about the federal declaration and everything else is likely what led to that. I'm not naive to think that I'm the only composer giving her feedback, but I know when I brought it up to her, she had never heard any of that stuff. And I know that I was the first person to bring her attention to that specific case. And she questioned me on it, and why wouldn't this work? And why wouldn't this work? And what do you guys want about all of that? And I said, well, I'm speaking for myself here, but this is how we work. And she had no clue how compose. They don't have a clue how we.
Of course, and they shouldn't be expected to be honest. I mean, it's how could they possibly have their mind around the inner workings of hundreds of different industries and
exactly.
But
then why are you making a law that is so broad and broad stroke that affects hundreds of different industries
because they think it all works the same?
Yeah.
They think it's there's just a blueprint. There's a umbrella solution to these problems, and it's whatever it is, unionization or tighter control over tax, whatever it is. I mean, it's a broad, they're painting with such broad strokes.
Yeah.
It's not the same as this, but there's a concept that I often refer to that I call Machiavellian altruism. It's like where you do something for me because you're a good guy and you love me, but really it gets you something, and that's your real core motivation. It's not quite the same as that, but it's real fucking close. It's like, and the way that they sell things like that is, hey, we're helping the average guy. We're helping the blue collar worker that's out there slaving away for Lyft and kicking his own ass for Uber. And meanwhile, all the executives are making all the money and everybody's living, on coke and hookers up in Malibu Heights. And, the drivers are all getting screwed and working their asses off like mules. That's the sell. The reality is it helps them. It's a union thing. It's financially driven, as always. They're donor people, back to the original conversation that we started this couple of hours with. Their donor people are the ones pulling the strings.
Yep.
And this is just another painfully close to home example of how we're all just being fucked with by these people.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah. So
crazy.
This exemption bill, it was Assembly Bill 1850. I think it's now gotten rolled into another exemption bill with some other industries, and it's called something else now. 22.
But they don't vote until the next cycle, correct?
Correct.
They don't vote on it until
it's
next legislative session.
It's written as an emergency measure, which means it could be enacted into law as soon as Gavin Newsom signs it, as opposed to normal bills, which actually have to go through various committees, have to pass, and then when he might sign it in the fall, but then it goes into effect January 1st.
Right.
This will not be that. So supposedly the California legislature is going to meet again early September, but literally I think there's 6 days between now and the end of the year when and I say that with an emphasis, they're hardly going to be in session this fall because of the pandemic stuff. They're just not doing anything.
Right. Everybody's on Zoom.
So if this bill does not come up and pass, this emergency measure in September, and on top of that, if Gavin Newsom then doesn't walk it over to his desk and sign it that day, what I described before this exemption is still law to this day that we are recording this, right? It is still law that it is against the law to do all this stuff for musicians until that law is signed. And so everything I described about AB5 and all its problems are still problems right now. And I have little confidence, to be honest with you, that what she says is going to happen will happen, because they have so much stuff to deal with. Then they're going to do an emergency measure for musicians. I don't see in the pandemic, this problem predates the pandemic, right? And then this thing has been kind of kicked along ever since because everybody's yelling about it. I'm hopeful, but for musicians, but there's a ton of other, interpreters are not in this exemption thing. This exemption thing is very specific to the music industry. To expand upon that, basically any musician, we were talking about hiring like a George Deane to come in and play. Any musician involved in the recording industry will be exempted. So, so film scores and all that stuff will be exempted, but musicians in the live performance arena,
touring musicians,
whatever, will not be exempted, with the exception of like the 4-member band at a bar, and they have weird
and the union people.
But we
which there's plenty of.
But there's people like going to music festival, very specific festival. So like Coachella, right? Yep. So Coachella's the organization that runs Coachella is going to have to make all the bands employees of Coachella to play at Coachella, right? So if Danny Elfman, who was going to open Coachella before a pandemic and then Coachella got canceled and then his show didn't happen, if Coachella happens again, they're going to have to hire Danny Elfman and all those people as like employees of Coachella in order to have them play or perform at Coachella, because it's a music venue. There's going to be more than 15,000 people. Like, it meets all these definitions that where you're going to have to be an employee, which means the union is going to come in and go, great, then we'll just make all these musicians, have to be union members, and you have to pay them as union, and they can play at Coachella and it'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So people who are not union members now, this gets into the FICOR stuff, because you could be on a union contract and get paid it as an employee if you're FICOR.
Yep.
So our friend Tina Guo could still get hired and whatever if it's a union contract, but it just means that all the stuff that goes on at Coachella, it's like going to have to be a union contract now, because that's the simplest way to pay everybody as an employee, essentially.
Yeah.
Because then you don't necessarily have to bring them on as an employee of Coachella if you're paying them as an employee because you're signing a union contract, and that satisfies the requirement.
You know what? And that, as a touring musician, that is a huge incentive, because I can tell you firsthand the hoops that tour promoters and or act managers have to go through to negotiate proper, or let me say that again. The hoops they have to jump through to negotiate sensible for them, for the organization, the tour, the act, payment methods and regional stuff. And I mean, here's an example. I was on a tour a couple of years ago where I was hired as a local musician because I live in Southeast Asia and the gig was in Tokyo, versus being hired as an international musician like I always am, right? Which is a completely different situation, different taxation, different amount they pay you, different package. You get paid by the week versus getting paid by the gig. Like, it's a totally different thing. And having somebody basically make it push button easy for you and say, hey, everybody that's here is union. Just give us the name of the people, and we'll put them on. We'll Taft-Hartley them into the union based on what based on the roster you're giving us. If we find somebody who's not union, we'll just put them in. That's very appealing for somebody who's got all this other shit to deal with. They don't want to fuck with the musicians. That's like the last thing they want to have to do. Wait, I can't hire this guy because he's not union? Are you kidding me? They just want an easy solution for the venue or the concert promoter, the Coachella people, to just say, hey, just give us your list. We'll make sure it's all taken care of under AB5. It's all done. You don't have to do anything. Just tell us who you want, basically. That's very, 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 very appealing to.
Well, it's going to put the onus back on the musicians if they want to have a soloist or someone specific who's not unionized. The union's going to come after that person now and say, here's how you sign up. You're going to have to be in the union. You were on the contract.
Exactly.
And then that person's going to have to say, wait, I don't want to be a union member, or maybe you do, and say, okay, well, how do I get paid on this contract and not be a member? Oh, well, there's FICOR, but do they know they have that option? Not everybody does.
Yeah, see, what I foresee is that all being built into the contract when you agree to the gig. There's going to be some sort of verbiage in there that says, so we have this is a good faith agreement that if you decide to sign this contract, you are agreeing to join AFFM, as, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't know how they're going to get around it, but I know there's a way, because there always is, Yeah. It's just going to be like a forced thing where you're just, oh God, I guess I'm in the union now. Shit, I didn't read it. It's just like my Facebook thing. I didn't read that shit either. They own all my fucking pictures. I mean, it's just another way to get everybody compliant, and
Yeah.
So yeah, what a mess.
So
well, at least, I mean, hopefully they won't. I hate to sound so dark and so, hopefully they won't use COVID as an excuse to let this drag on another 18 months,
I hope not.
And that they'll actually push it through in September, like you said, and Newsom will be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Musicians, who cares?
He's tended, we met with Governor Newsom's staff. I mean, he was not in the room, but his key policy advisors were in the room. And they so play the politics of it. They basically said Governor Newsom views this as a legislative issue, not an executive issue.
Yeah, whatever.
And you all should
Then
really
you shouldn't have signed it in the first place.
Yeah, you all should be really
Dipshit.
talking to the legislators that put this bill on his desk to sign. And we're
Right.
sitting there going, yes, but as an executive, if this is really bad bill or bad for California, you have the choice to not sign it. Like you
Yeah.
actually did sign it, and
Yeah,
it
you're
went into
sort
law.
of the leader of the state.
Yeah. So
You know, that's like going back to the car lot and saying, "Hey, I signed this, but it's bullshit. I just had my lawyer look at it. What the fuck are you trying to do here?" It's like, come on, man.
So
you
they
know,
were
if you're
definitely
going to
trying
put your
to kick
name on
that.
something, you should at least read it, maybe know something about it.
Yeah. So they were definitely trying to kick that down the curb. Like it's not my fault. I just sign what they give me. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Jerry Lewis. Yeah, that's silly, man. That's
Governor
so
Newsom.
silly. You know, I had real high hopes for that guy, and I still think he's a good guy, but you know, it's like, man, come on, dude. It's just like any other industry, you know. It's just
You
I
want
mean,
you want to hear another one? So
Sure.
Gavin Newsom's former his wife before his current wife. So I'm going back many years because he's been married for a little while now, and he has kids with his current wife, and it's like supposedly that's a great thing. So, but before that he was before that he was
supposedly.
yeah, supposedly he was
great.
married to Kimberly Guilfoyle. Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Kimberly Guilfoyle was a Fox
Yeah.
News personality, and she's a pretty hardcore Republican. She was a district attorney in
Wasn't she on the short list to replace? She was on the short list to replace Governor Arkansas guy's kid.
Yeah, Huckabee.
the press
Yeah.
secretary. Yeah, Sarah
Yeah.
Huckabee Sanders.
Yeah, she was, and so, but she's an attorney. She's a former DA. She's in San Francisco and all this other stuff. But she was married to Gavin Newsom, and she's about as far right as you can be in terms of I won't say far right. She's definitely comfortably Republican.
Yeah.
And he's
that's the thing. You got to be careful how you say that now, because it means totally different thing now.
there's very few people far right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So most people are still in the middle, even though they want to paint everybody in the
But far righters are like the guys that are going to come to your house and shoot you if you.
Yeah, the David Duke. Yeah,
that's right. Exactly.
But
yeah.
So, Gavin Newsom is comfortably, left, and so that I just find that very interesting. Well, guess who Kimberly Guilfoyle is dating now? Donald Trump Jr.
Oh my God! I knew you were going to say something like that.
I'm not kidding.
Oh man!
So Gavin Newsom's ex,
Wow,
is now dating seriously, like they've been together for like a couple of years now. Donald Trump Jr. Donald Trump Jr. he was married, had a wife. He's gotten divorced, whatever. And
right,
and,
I remember that.
Guilfoyle is the new, and it's apparently serious. And it's probably why she was on the short list.
Man, it'd be so weird to be anybody but Donald Trump coming to California, taking off his jacket, walking through the wildfires with Gavin Newsom, knowing that your kid is stooping his ex-wife. What the fuck kind of country do we live in, man? What is going on?
And I believe this. I'm not. I told you I didn't vote for the guy, but I believe Donald Trump is playing a character, that he's being the guy that people want him to be. And I'm not saying he's a nice guy. He's definitely been given carte blanche to be that, as you say, that dick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there have been moments over the last 4 years where he like literally said, he's in some speech, like he's campaigning again in some whatever.
Right.
And he literally, he basically, you see a glimpse of, he knows the role he's playing. He knows the exact words to say to piss these people off, to rile up these people, and that he was put there to be the uncontrollable anti-DC politician, non-politician, whatever. Like, he knows he's not dumb. You know, I'm not saying
I'm
not saying
dumb.
he's Nobel.
Right.
Brilliant.
Yeah. You're not going the Scott Adams route.
But he knows from his Hollywood and his show, everything else.
He knows how to put on entertainment.
Yeah, and some of the politicians who do really well in crowds and everything else. I mean, from Reagan, even Obama, whatever. You know, they know how to act and they know how to play a part and they know how to get people riled up. And as dumb as his jokes are, I think he's trying to be dumb. He's trying to be like one of the common people, and he's I
really do think that when he says things like, well, can we just put the light inside people? Can we just shine the light inside, open up their mouth, and or whatever the fuck he said, just stick it in their ears and shine the light and get the COVID out. When he says stuff like that, or whatever it was he said about UV lights and stuff, I know he's got to be thinking, watch this shit.
Well, you know what?
This is really going to fuck people.
There actually is.
There
actually is.
I know there is. I know.
Right?
I know.
He probably had it. Like, it was mentioned to him in the morning briefing that he was half paying attention to. And he caught, and then he wants to go off the cuff and make it an actual part of his speech that no one's like, we didn't write this. What are you what are you doing?
Yeah, and he's like a little kid that just sees shiny shit. And
yeah. But it's like the disinfectant. Isn't there something that we can do about it?
Can we just inject them with Lysol?
But he didn't say inject with Lysol either, right? He said,
I know that.
I lost 2 people on Facebook because I challenged him and I literally said, and there's someone that we know who I didn't lose.
I know who it was.
Who I didn't lose, right?
Yeah.
But I commented on the thread.
Close, though.
And I said, he did not say inject with bleach. He didn't tell people to inject with bleach. He didn't, that's not, I'm sorry if, he said, is there some sort of a disinfectant or thing that we can give people that goes up and eats something? Literally like a kid would ask, right? I mean, he's asking the question. It's not necessarily a dumb question unless you make the actual thing you're injecting bleach, right? That's what, but but he didn't say, can't we inject bleach? I mean, bleach kills it. Can't we inject bleach?
Yeah.
He didn't say that.
No. People hear what they want to hear.
Yeah. There was literally a columnist.
And then they repeat it.
There was a columnist of a left-leaning opine guy. I forget it was Washington Post or whatever, who literally summarized his question by saying, the president basically just said, can't we inject bleach? Like he literally, and that's the guy that said it, not Trump, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
and then that hits the AP.
Yeah.
And then all of the AP affiliates reprint that, and it becomes, and the legend becomes truth.
Yeah.
So I understand. Yeah, I get that.
But then on Facebook, I got, getting back to the, how we treat people again.
Yeah.
There were 2 people that unfriended me after I commented on that thread. And they're not, one of them I've invited to my UCLA class, and they've spoken at my UCLA class, and I'm like, and they didn't comment on my, they stealth unfriended me, right? They unfriended me without mentioning that they were unfriending me. Another one was a former student of mine who I've actually helped with stuff. I've given them free gear and some free stuff, and I've never trying to help them, whatever. And, and they didn't even unfriend me. They actually blocked me. Because all of a sudden, I can't. So now, you go into Perspective Forum or whatever, and then people this person is commenting, and people are commenting on their stuff, and and I don't see any of the stuff.
You don't. So you're out of context.
Yeah. And I'm like, really, people? The industry is not that big. We're all still working with each other, and do you really think? Because I come on and challenge somebody about, he didn't say inject bleach. Come on, get real, people. Then all of a sudden I'm like the evil racist Trump supporter. I don't like.
Right.
I don't.
See, that's the thing. That's what bothers me is you saying that. All it means is exactly what you said it means. That's not what he actually said.
Yeah.
How from that are you racist, xenophobic, sexist?
Because I'm enabling that. Or
homophobic.
Because I'm supposed to be as outraged. I'm actually more outraged at the BS that people make from this stuff because again, all it does is perpetuate the fighting amongst us in society, and
it brings you down.
Yeah.
To think that a president actually said that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, fuck, then we're hopeless. The fucking guy is a lunatic, which, look, he might be anyway, whether he said that or not.
Yeah.
But because he's done plenty of other shit that, I could cite. But still, like, why involve yourself in that creation, Like, why? What? Don't you have some music to write? Don't you have some fucking guitar to practice? Make sure you're practicing it, not someone else in your studio, because then you have to put them on your payroll. But like, don't you have some shit to do? Like, don't you have kids to play with? Why align yourself with these false statements and these hyperbolic representations of what actually happened? One of the things that I think is so crazy that a lot of this has revealed is people just get so bent out of shape about shit that hasn't even happened yet.
I know.
Well, what if blah blah blah? What if he doesn't leave the White? Okay, you don't have to worry about that until January 21st of next fucking year, dude. Do you know how long that is? Do you know how much shit can change between now and then? I mean, the country could erupt in a civil war by then, or there could be a vaccine and everybody gets okay and everybody's cool and things are back to relatively normal. And you don't even know who's going to be president.
It's
like, dude, relax, man.
There's some things in the U.S. Constitution that are very, very clear, and there are some things that are not clear because they didn't think of all this stuff, right? One thing is very, very clear is when the term of the presidency ends. And it doesn't say, oh, this doesn't end in the middle of a pandemic, or this doesn't end. It ends like January 20th or whatever that day is, like when the inauguration happens. Like, it's very specific. So even if something's screwed up during the voting, during whatever, like something's weird, that term ends on that day. It is very, very, very clear. And there is no extension of the term. If the voting gets screwed up, he gets to stay an extra year till we figure it out. That doesn't happen. It ends at that time. And now it may be kind of weird to figure out who takes the place in the interim. That's the stuff we haven't figured out, because it also says. But
honestly, there's constitutional routing for that as well, though.
There is, because there's the line of successor.
There's a line of succession.
Yeah. But the Congress will change, right? So the line of succession would have Nancy Pelosi. Yes. But the problem is that Nancy Pelosi may or may not be the Speaker of the House again, right? Like she's not going to lose, right? But what if she lost? What if someone else changed it? Then you're not. So there's actually arguments.
Well, if somebody else changes, then that person effectively becomes president in the interim, correct? Isn't that correct? Wouldn't logic have it that whoever's in that seat, it's not the person, it's the seat. Not the person,
it's the seat. Yes.
Right.
Yes. So, but then again, they have to vote that person to be the speaker, and they have to vote
so that could take a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
So what happens
vacated
into that there's this little window that happens, but it's not like Trump just stays on until all the other crap gets figured out. Like, it's like his part is actually really clear as to when it ends, and barring some.
Well, I think what the argument is, it's not so much just what is the constitutional process by which that takes place. I think the argument, or at least the charge by the left, is
he's not going to follow it anyway.
He's not going to obey the Constitution, and add to that, to make things fucking worse and crazy, he's got all the gun people with him. So all them gator hunters is going to go up and defend. It's like, what, dude? Okay, look, I have relatives, I have siblings even who are like militia type dudes, and like they don't even fucking believe that. Like, quit being so crazy.
I know.
You know, it's
Well,
like, goodness gracious.
Because when you want him out so badly.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just it's just everybody has to have something to be pissed off about, or they're not happy.
Yeah.
You know,
Go make
and
music.
just, man, that's crazy, man. Like, there's shit to be done here. We got things to do.
Put the angst into your music.
I got to take my kid to surf lessons for
I
crying
know.
out loud. You know, I mean, that's like, you know, there's shit that's got to get done here. Like, quit worrying about it, you know? And at the same time, you balance that with, okay, is there an existential sliding of the, you know, the mudslide here into the, you know, descending into madness slowly over to, you know, is there a frog in the kettle situation happening where everybody's just like, don't worry about it, it's fine. Next thing we know, we wake up and Hitler Jr.'s running shit, you know? I mean, there are signs in the historical past that are not very far away, to be honest, where we've just turned our back and went, just don't worry about it, you know? And the next thing we know, they're shoving people in ovens, you know? So there is a balance to be achieved. But I think in our hypersensitive cancel culture, 24-hour news cycle, Chris Cuomo fucking world, you know, it's...
Is that the CNN
it's
bodybuilder?
It's run amok, you know? Yeah, wasn't he the guy that pretended like he had COVID?
that CNN bodybuilder correspondent? Yeah.
Bodybuilder. Is he a bodybuilder?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Knows jokes with his brother.
You know,
yeah.
I am much more the belief that you know, the government was created, the Constitution was created to slow things down. I think the separation of powers actually does work. I think we've proven that time and time again because, you know, if the president does something that people don't like or people want to challenge legally, they bring a lawsuit, and then that lawsuit goes to a judge, and then if that judge makes a ruling, even if we don't like it, you know, that can be appealed up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court may or may not hear it, and if they do hear it, there have been Supreme Court cases fairly recently that have not gone in Donald Trump's direction, and there have been other
several.
Yeah, and there have been other Supreme Court
by his own dudes.
Yeah, and there have been other cases that have gone in his direction, especially with you know, some of the immigration things and the wall stuff and whatever. And it's because it's very clear that stuff is an executive, in the executive branch purview. And so I do think, you know, just because things don't happen the way an individual wants politically doesn't mean that the system is not working. I think the system is actually working.
I agree. I actually really agree with that. I have a friend who has been, he's somehow afraid I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden, right? I'm like, dude, you've known me for 30 years.
You're going to write in Bernie?
You know? Yeah, like I'm going to, like I'm going to fucking, you know, foghorn leghorn. So, which would basically be the same as writing in Trump.
I told you I'm probably going to write in my cat, right?
Yes. I might too. So, but he's like totally convinced that I'm, you know, because I want the Democratic Party to be challenged in a positive direction. You know, I don't want status quo. I really don't. You know, as soon as Bernie lost the primary, I said, all right, he fucking lost. He lost. I don't know if it was fair and square. I can't tell. I wasn't there. You know, I don't know. I voted for the guy. That's all I can tell you. He lost. Now we move on to the phase 2, and phase 2 looks to be, at that point, Joe Biden, you know? But he goes, well, at the very least, you know, you're not just voting for president. You're voting for the Supreme Court, and you're voting to uphold abortion rights, and you're voting, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, dude, have you paid any attention to the Supreme Court lately? We don't have a problem. We don't have a problem. I mean, the people that Trump was like, we're going to right the court, you know, they're like, fuck you, Trump. You can't do that shit. We're not doing that. We're not signing this. Are you crazy? You know, I mean, for the most part, there's been a couple of little nuanced things that I would go, okay, well, I see why they really did that, you know, but like, you know, I mean, it doesn't appear to be as dire on the court as, you know, I mean, I think the reason why you don't get to be a Supreme Court judge by not going against the grain plenty of times.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that is, you know, it's not like electing a reality star as your president. It's not the same thing. They actually have to do the fucking work to get to that point, you know, to even be eligible for contention or for consideration, rather. So I just think people, for the most part, we've just been dumbed down to the point to where people, like I joked earlier, I smoked dope through civics class. Actually not true, but I've never smoked dope in my life. But I was doing other things, let's just put it that way, on the day that they taught all this shit. And I was chasing Carla Roth in the fucking, you know,
we don't
parking
teach
lot.
civics anymore.
It's not even a thing.
And I lament that because I think people don't understand how government works. And I think we have people who go through the citizenship process from other countries that know more about how our government works than people who were born here, because they have to learn as part of that process. They have to learn about our government and everything else. And so, you know, and I don't understand why we're not teaching our youth in school about how government works, because then all of a sudden,
it's weird. My kids who are dual, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off again. Yeah. Dual citizens, right? They were born here, but they were born as my children, so they're they're Indonesian Americans. Calvin takes civics. He's in private school, and part of their mandatory curriculum is an American. If you're an American, you take American civics. If you're Australian, you take what they call Australian heritage class. If you're from, you know, Holland, which there's a lot of people here that are, you know, from the Netherlands and Holland and, you know, some Dutch-speaking countries, because this was a Dutch-occupied territory for so long, and there's just a lot of families that are mixed, you know. There's there's civics classes for those particular I mean, it's part of the deal here. And I told my wife, I don't know, a couple of months ago, she said, I think it's good that he's learning all this stuff. And I said, yeah, probably 95% of Americans don't know half the shit he knows.
No.
Not a clue.
But they think they do. They think
they do.
They know it.
Yes.
But they don't know it. And they
don't know any of it.
That's legal, or that's how that works, or whatever. Oh my gosh, Trump's going to be president for 9 years. He's going to throw it. Like this stuff doesn't.
It's retarded. It's ridiculous. Yep.
I don't know. So a lot of stuff to me is just a very emotional, reactionary, fear-based, you know, and angsty, frustrated. I get the frustration, but a lot of it's not based in reality, and that, you know, and to unfriend people over that, or to, you know, to shut people out of your life over that, you know, especially people you work with, people that you're going to come across again in the industry. Like, that's just like, it's not worth the drama. It's not worth, you know, doing that. Like, you know, you and I disagree on things. Like, I feel like I want to give you the benefit of the doubt when we disagree about stuff, and I want to hear about that, and I want to learn about that. And if it's important to you, it should be important to me. But at the same time,
that's the sign that's the sign of the way you would handle anything else, though, even if it wasn't political.
Yeah.
You know, like if you and I were working on a project and I was like, man, Brian, that trumpet line that you played, you know, can you do it like this? Or, you know, I wouldn't feel bad about saying that to you. I know you're not going to be offended, you know, and if you were offended, okay, well, we'll get past it because we're friends, you know. You say, hey, man, that really hurt my feelings, or, I really put a lot of work into that, or, you know, whatever. And I go, oh, gosh, dude, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. I just meant, you talk it out. But to just sever the relationship, you know, and just be like, okay, fuck you. That's it. You did it. That's the straw that broke the camel's back right there. I don't want to associate with you ever again. I'm out. You're out. Is just so juvenile and so immature. I mean, dude, I've forgiven people for the most egregious things in this business. We're not like buddies. It took a long time for me to like get back with them again to where I was like, okay, I think this is going to be okay now. We can work on another project together.
Yeah.
But man, they've said horrible things that I've heard, and I'm like, whoa, dude, I can't be involved in that conversation with you, man. If you're going to talk that way, we can't work on this together. And then years later, they came back and said, hey, man, remember that one time? That wasn't me. I'm not that person now,
Yeah.
And being like, okay, cool. I'm not either,
One
I've
of,
grown and changed since we talked. So let's do some shit.
one of my producers, the Crooked Arrows producer, and he was also an executive on Bean Rose, and he is not a politically right guy at all. I mean, he's he would go to Grateful Dead concerts every night of the week if he could, and he's total hippie now Hollywood producer, and
Sure.
he's no more long hair, but he's got them
Right.
inside. That's what he
Yeah. Ponytail still. He's still rocking that ponytail in his mind.
Yeah. And as far left as he likes to sit politically, he's very, very smart about it, because he's like, you know what? Most of the people that give me a lot of money to do these projects are not left wing people. They're right wing investor guys. Mm-hmm. And he's like, if I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I see these sentiments in what he posts, but he's like, I got to get along with everybody, and I got to find a way. And the way he politically disagrees with people online is a masterclass in respectful, professional disagreement. He's very quick to, let's just agree to disagree type thing. But he doesn't, there's no condescension. If he wants to say something that's because he's frustrated, he'll say it in a certain way that might rile people up, but he's not directing it at any one individual. It's just kind of like shouting to the sky, about some political thing. Yeah. But then when individuals come on, he doesn't ever attack individuals. And he certainly is very respectful when people share their point of view. And it's a masterclass in disagreement. And I think in our industry, we are around people as we create music that, people that emote for a living. I mean, that's what musicians kind of do. That's what we have to do in a film score is clue into the emotions and like figure out how to write that into music. And, people who emote for a living are very emotional people, and that's not and I say that not to say that that's a left or right wing. I think it's a human thing. Like, that's just who we all are, no matter what side of politics we're on. And, and I think that's okay to be an emotional person, but I also think that, we have to understand, that people, their life experience, they come to these things from a very different experience. And quite frankly, if we're going to embrace diversity of thought and of experience and everything else, that ultimately we mean respect for everybody, of anything, including the political persuasion. So I don't know. I just think.
Well, no, I know what you mean. I think, I'll even take it a step further and say that, there's such a focus on microaggression and just nitpicking every little thing that everybody does or says or believes in, and whether or not it's, that person is alt-right or extremist left, or any number of these labels we can slap on people, whatever. I mean, just literally a minute and a half ago, I said retarded, and I'm sure I'm gonna catch shit for that from somebody. Yeah. But you know what? And maybe I wish I would have said something different. I don't know, probably. But the point is that, I think artists think about things in a much more broad and just a minute. You got your beach toys? We'll go get them. No, I will later. Go. Okay. You're like chomping at the bit. Like I think the way that our brains work sometimes is we are more emotional creatures, We wouldn't be able to do what we do if we weren't really, really connected to ourselves emotionally and even spiritually in a sense. I'm not a super spiritual guy, but I do believe in it as an idea, And I think that you can't really. Well, you can. People do it, I'm sure. But for me personally, there's something very spiritual about the act of writing music and making art, and it's a sanctuary experience for me. Like you're in your sanctuary, you're in your church there at Studio 74. I'm in my church here in Bali. This is part of where I do it, and out in the shed. So. It's a very in touch with things experience, I guess, for lack of a more elegant way to say it. And I think that we make a lot of mistakes because of that. We say wrong shit. We say things that people don't like. The best artists, in my opinion, are the ones who stand up and go, hey, I'm saying this. I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks, Bob Dylan's of the world, the Joan Baez's of the world, the even the Kid Rocks of the world on the right, on the Republican side. There are people on the Republican side that I really admire because they just won't be shut up. They won't be silenced. They don't care, what people think. And they're just who they are, and that's it. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe when they're 80 years old, they'll look back and go, gosh, I could have been a little bit more careful about what I believed, or I don't know. But so be it. That's life. You learn things, and when you learn, you're a different person. You're a different person than you were 30 seconds ago. Because you've learned. Now you're that learned person. You're the person who learned. And the fact that we don't give each other the chance to learn anymore and improve and be different and figure things out, that's it. You're out of my life. I've had it done to me just as recently as a few months ago, and this dude that the other day I posted about, he's just like, yeah, okay, I'm out. He's done that before. He'll be back, but this is like his MO. But he's like a boomerang. I can't get the booger on the end of my finger. I can't get him off if I tried. So, so he's a special exception. But, a lot of people they're just like, I'm done, Well, how does that grow anybody? How does that make you a better artist? I don't think it does. You can't, there's nothing to write about, man, unless there's things that happen that you wish didn't happen that way, And then you have the chance to go back and you write about it. At least I do as a songwriter. I write about all the things that I regret, the things I learned from and the things that I want to change about myself and I wish I would have done different, or the things that I'm proud I'm doing different now that I didn't do 20 years ago and I should have, So I hope that whatever happens this year, after COVID, after the election, after all the things we've talked about, I just hope that people have the sense to sit back and go, okay, it's all over. It is what it is now. What did I learn? And how am I going to be different? And what did I do wrong? What would I do differently? How did I handle my relationships? How did I handle my friendships? Who did I just write off because I was being stupid and I was being passionate in the moment and I thought, yeah, screw you, I'm done, Versus who's still here, even though I was an asshole, that person's still in my life. They stuck with me. Why can't I stick with people, Yeah. I would like us to all have that moment. I hope. That's my hope.
Yeah.
I don't really care who becomes president, to be real honest. I don't even live there anymore.
Yeah.
I care because of you. You're there. Care because my mom is there. My dad is there. They have to live in that,
Yeah.
in that kingdom, so to speak. But for me, I just hope that we just learn a huge lesson out of all this,
I agree. There's something I want to share, or take the opportunity to really quickly share. It's a link that I hope we put up in the show notes. The sociologist Jonathan Haidt, Haidt.
Yeah.
And
Coddling in the American Mind.
So yeah, and he has a TED Talk from probably a decade ago now, called "The Moral Roots of Conservatives, Liberals and Conservatives," and when I saw this, it resonated with me, and I felt like I learned a lot from it, and I learned a lot about how I view other people from it, to the point where people that had other viewpoints different than me were not so scary anymore, because of this TED Talk. And it's 18 minutes, and I suggest people to go check it out and watch the whole 18 minutes. And he talks about 5 moral foundations. There's some revision to this, where some people are saying there's 6 moral foundations now, but there's 5. His TED Talk talks about 5, and it's the belief that as humans, these are the raw moral roots that we as humans have. One is care harm. The think of these as like yin yang, like opposites.
Yes.
So care harm, fairness and cheating, loyalty and betrayal. So there's that authority and subversion to authority. And then sanctity and or purity, and the degradation of sanctity and purity. And then the 6th one, which he doesn't talk about in his TED Talk, but has kind of come up since then as they kind of revise this moral foundation theory, is liberty and oppression. Freedom and oppression. Okay.
Makes sense.
And that in all societies that are human, and he says we even see this in animal kingdoms a little bit, even like with orangutans and apes and other species that are somewhat like humans. They see these traits acted out in society, and he talks about this. And if we think of people like a EQ band on a stereo or something like that, and these moral roots, like they're the harm, care, and the fairness and cheating, and sanctity, purity, and sanctity, purity. Republicans and conservatives might put a more sexual emphasis on that, but he's like, Democrats and liberals, they still have those traits, and a lot of that is being manifested in environmental concerns and in food concerns, what we put into our bodies and how we make our, and there's a very sanctity, purity quality to that, and if it's not sex and religion, it's environment and healthy stuff, So it's a similar thing going on. So we all have all of these traits, and if they were to graph, and they've done these studies over many, many years, and tens of thousands, if not at this point, hundreds of thousands of people have taken these tests, and they rate this harm, care, rate these things on a scale, it is almost consistent across the world, not just the United States, but in Europe and everything else. The people who are more conservative tend to put authority much higher, and loyalty much higher, and liberty and freedom much higher than other issues like the degradation of purity or whatever. Like they tend to rate these things much higher, and all of a sudden you can see what is making people drive to be this person politically or this person politically, and what they have in common. And I it's not that conservatives don't have empathy. They just, if you're going to look at the scale of certain things, they probably put authority and social order, that's the, the sanctity and degradation or whatever. They probably put those things higher on their scale than they do, these other issues. And so it really boils humans down to these natural traits. These are the things we're born with, the things that they are not created by society around us, but they're just the moral roots of humanity is the argument of this theory. And I see a lot in that. And I don't view people as not having empathy just because they're conservative. They put things like authority or whatever as just higher on their scale. That's what's more important to them for X, Y, and Z. And when you start looking at people with these moral foundations, it's not right or wrong. It's just their construct, how they were born, where they were raised.
I was just going to say, a lot of it is circumstantial.
It goes into feeding what's important for that person. If this person struggled or didn't have some, social order in their life growing up, then maybe they put other things that, and by the time we all become adults and of voting age and everything else, we're much different people, right? And so then the person next to us, because we've all had different experiences, and I that doesn't make them necessarily right or wrong. He was saying if you look at the funny part in the TED Talk, he's like, if you look at all these things and how people is, you can completely understand why anybody would want to eat at Applebee's, just not anybody
right. Yes. Yeah.
Because it also implies, we tend to, that's how we get into our bubbles. We tend to
absolutely
associate with people that have very common ideals in these various moral foundations as well. And
we also don't understand how it's even fathomable or possible that somebody else could not share our same outlook on life. That's the number one thing that people ask me about. What's it like to live abroad? Well, it's really no different than living back in the States. I mean, it is in certain respects, like the climate here is better. And, in my opinion, the food doesn't have pesticides and shit all over it. I don't have to worry about that ever. I just go out and pick a banana and eat it, all of that trivial stuff aside, the biggest thing that I've learned living here for 10 years, almost 11 years now, we're a product of where we come from. I've talked to Pakistanis that have been here who are born and bred Muslim extremists, and they cannot imagine or fathom how I could possibly tolerate living in a Christian nation. They just can't. It's not that they think it's crazy. Well, they do think it's crazy, but they only think it's crazy because they just don't have any frame of reference. They have no frame of reference for it. Everything that they've always known is Allah is God, the one true God, and anybody who doesn't agree, just kill him. And I'm not saying that all Muslims think that. I'm just saying these specific people I was talking to did. They did believe that. They told me that. The fact that we're sitting here talking to you, if anybody finds out about this, we'd be put to death at home. And I was like, whoa, because I was always taught when I was a kid that they're the enemy. They're the bad people. They're confused. They're crazy. They're nuts. We're the ones that, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's we both believe the exact same thing. It's just we're off by one entity.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I was born in fucking Dublin, I'd probably be Irish. Definitely be Irish. I'd probably be Catholic on top of it too. If I was born in India, I'd most likely be Hindu of some sort. Yeah. I mean, we're so And that's the extreme way to, that's a very extreme way to look at what you're saying, because what you're saying, I think, is also, how were you raised, what your parents were like, and what the region within the country you lived is going to play, it's going to figure into it. I mean, all these little nuanced things. But I realized, once I realized, hey, we all accidentally believe what we believe. It's not by design. It's not, there's no force at work behind the scenes going, pitting us against each other. There's no real, in my opinion, there's no God that's, right or wrong. It's where we're from. And if we were from a different place, we'd believe totally different shit.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
It's why I have a problem, and, of just being honest and open about this, about the white privilege argument ultimately that gets, it's trying to redefine experiences that people have in their life that they are not in control over into a negative thing, as if people can't see or understand or have to live the struggle to understand the struggle, or whatever. You've never had to do the struggle. I could say this a lot of different ways, and any way I say it is going to get I'm going to get more people unfriending me after this episode. But everybody has their own experience, and I don't purport to know or understand what people's struggles have been, but they don't necessarily know what mine have been. I may have been raised by, I was born late in my parents' lives. They were married 18 years before I was born. And so when I was born, they were, older and more established in life than most 20-something-year-olds. They were in their 40s, and I'm an only child, and so I was their miracle baby. But look at what my parents had to struggle. They went 18 years trying to have a kid and couldn't have a kid, and they pretty much gave up all hope of that, and I'm the first person in my family to have a college education. Is that a negative? No, I have a college education because my dad and my mom, not having a college degree, were like, damn well, we're going to make sure our kid has the opportunity to go to college.
Right. And also their circumstances enabled them to save up for 22 years so that you could have a college education.
My parents lived in an apartment because
if they would have had you when they were 18, the chances of you going to college would have been a hell of a lot more slim.
Exactly. You look at, going to that, you look at the stats, and one of the big things you can do to make sure your kid has a good upbringing is to essentially not have a kid too early, not have a kid out of a stable 2-parent family. And I'm not even going to define what the 2 parents are, but just having a kid in an unstable situation, you're setting the kid up for a bigger struggle. And that's not your fault as a kid, but that's, and that's not always the fault of the parent. Things happen.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's, my parents, they lived in an apartment because they didn't need anything more than an apartment. And then when my mom was pregnant with me, and when they finally were convinced that my mom in their 40s was pregnant with me, my dad made her get a second opinion. Kind of funny. You're 40 years old, Joyce. Really? You're not. How can you be pregnant?
Like an Abraham and Sarah situation. Yeah. Like, are you sure it's me?
But they literally sat there and they said, well, we should probably go buy a house then. We want to raise a kid in a house, not an apartment. And, and my dad was such, saving money, he's a child of the Great Depression. They didn't spend money. They saved everything they had because he was waiting for the next Great Depression, that's what he took. That's what he learned in the Great Depression is, always have a nest egg. And so they literally went out and they bought a home in Los Angeles, a $40,000 home. They put 50% down in cash in 1974 or 73.
Wow.
Right.
73. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But so, and that was a lot of money back then, but he had, let's just go buy a house. How many people when they're pregnant can think, oh, well, I guess we should buy a house then. And they go do it. That's not normal. And that wasn't normal, but that's who they were because of his circumstance and that he was a child of the Great Depression. And he was damn sure to make sure that that his family was not going to have to struggle like he did. And that's not a negative. That was them struggling to learn and try to make the next generation of their family better, and not have to deal with that and to deal with other issues, And
Right.
so it's like, that's not a negative. That's, to me, that's what everybody aspires to. You want your kids to have a better future than you had. You want your kids to have more than you had. And you try to do things for your family and your kids. I mean, that's not to be worn on your sleeve as like a shameful thing. And I really hate.
I just think
that
it's silly. I think it's so silly that somebody would be ashamed of something they have zero control over.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a friend named Nate that I work out with at the gym. I haven't for a while because the gym's closed, but when we do, pre-COVID, he's a big, giant, black bodybuilder guy. And, obviously I'm not at his level at all with working out and stuff, but I've learned a lot of stuff from him, and he's the greatest dude in the world. He's from Amsterdam. And we were talking about this, and I said, what do you think as a black man, about all this, what is it, critical race theory and, the D'Angelo book. I read it a while ago. What's it called? The fragility, white fragility.
White fragility.
I said, what do you think of all this? Because I know what I think, but what do you think as a black guy? And he goes, the only thing I'll say about it, imagine if it was the inverse. And he said, and I've had this happen. He said, where somebody tells me, you should be ashamed of yourself because you were born a poor black kid. What the fuck is the matter with you? Chin up. And he said, that's not true. I mean, I can be anything I want to be.
Yeah.
Just because I was born poor and black in a European country to parents who, my dad was a shoemaker, He said, who's going to tell me what I need to believe or what I need to be or or what the ceiling is on my abilities or my capabilities as a human being? Or who's going to tell me that I can't go to Bali and be a personal trainer and kick ass and have a life and have a wife and 2 kids and live on the beach and do whatever I want? Who's going to tell me that? What, because of how I was born on an accident, that's just not possible? Fuck off. It's ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. Yeah. So why isn't it also true for other people of other ethnicities? And I thought, yeah, it's a good point. It's almost like the reality of what those people are saying, if turned on them, makes zero sense. It cancels it out. It's like a Looney Tunes cartoon, where the fucking Roadrunner and Coyote that kill each other at the same time, like no one ever existed. It's just it's a goofy way to look at the world, to be embarrassed by the fact that you were born as you are. And it's what we tell all of our kids. We tell our kids this all day long. We talk about this all day. Hey, don't be embarrassed of who you are. You're awesome. You're awesome just like you are. So why in the world, all of a sudden now, is it outlawed to be a white person born into some privilege when you didn't ask for that? I know plenty of people who were born into white privilege that turned out to be fucking asshole losers in life. And are doing nothing with their life, man. Sitting around playing video games at 45 years old. I went to high school with these people. Like, they've done fucking nothing. So it's just ludicrous in my view. It's a silly thing to even be talking about almost.
To purport that I can't have empathy or understand or learn about other people because of my skin color.
Yeah. But that's a genetic defect in you.
To me,
you're automatically racist because you're a white person.
We're going the other direction. We're now really? Trying to fight racism by justifying a different kind of racism and trying to say, well, our racism is more justified than that racism because blah, blah, blah.
That's a much more generous thing that I would give it credit for. I think it goes back to what I said earlier about Machiavellian altruism. It makes you look so much better, Brian, if you just would admit that you're just not as good as everyone else. You know, that you're so flawed, Brian, because you were born in frickin', you know, north of the 210.
Yeah.
You know, you just don't understand, Brian, how good you have it and how you've been set up from the very beginning of your life to win against everyone else. Yeah. And you should be ashamed of that.
Yeah.
You know, that's effectively what they're saying.
Yeah.
And they're saying it only because they don't know how to convey their true feelings about racism, which is that, man, for most people, I think, I don't think that way. And I can't possibly think of anything to say to you, my friend, that is going to console what's been done to you. So I'm going to say that, yeah, I've got the problem too. I got the Jones for some racism every once in a while.
Well,
you know,
and
I need to learn. Bullshit.
Well,
just if you don't believe that, you don't believe it.
You ever notice when you're really mad at somebody, if you show disappointment instead of anger, usually it has more of an impact in getting them to change their behavior.
Absolutely. My dad used to do that to me all the time. I'm not mad at you. I'm just really disappointed in you.
Yeah. When you show anger, right, it's like it's the fight or flight, and people put up the defenses, and you're not going to get anywhere with your anger. But if you show disappointment, that starts to then you feel guilty.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I posted about this on Facebook.
Yeah, and the guilt motivates you to change, right?
Yes.
And so, and this, to me, a lot of this gets into trying to make, ultimately, to push a level of guilt onto people, because that's going to make them change their behavior more, hopefully, from that perspective, than not. But it also paints everybody with a broad racial brush. That's just not true either. We're literally doing the very thing that we're fighting against, because we feel that we're more justified. Again, we understand why they want, to go to Applebee's, just not anybody we know. Like they're in their bubble of, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm going to make you, and this gets into psychology of teams too. And, I'm right, and I'm going to, make my team win and your team lose. And there's a lot of different ways to look at it.
And to be clear, and I think I can speak for you too. I just want to say this because I think it's important. I'm not saying that that's ever come the other direction. I've never been told by a black person or an Asian person or an Indian, an Eastern Indian person, or anybody that, man, you're a racist fucking asshole. No one's ever said that to me, but white people have.
Yeah,
man, that's a real racist thing. You sure you want to? I hear that from white people if I ever hear it at all. But my friends who are of other ethnicities and from other nations, they never say that. We get along great, and we don't have any. There's no awkwardness. I joke around with them. They joke around with me. We make fun of each other. We talk shit. We have a great time. We play music, whatever we're doing. We work out, But white people, yeah, that's why I think I posted about this on Facebook a couple of weeks ago and got a bunch of shit too, and some kudos to people that agreed. Stop trying to be, if really what you're sorry for is that you've victimized other people, why are you so good at stealing that back for yourself now? White people I'm an American Indian, right? I'm a Klamath Modoc Yahuskan. My whole paternal side of my family is. My grandma was full-blooded Klamath Modoc. If anybody has a bitch against white people, it's my family, We got fucked to the max, right? None of my family hates white people. None of them talk bad. We're all intermarried with them. We've all intermarried white people. All my cousins are married to white people. I mean, we just don't think about it. It's ancestral what happened, and it was tragic and it was horrible. We talk about it all the time. We get together for holidays. We remember. We go to Fort Klamath, and we remember the war, the Klamath War, the Modoc Wars. I mean, there's a whole history of things that we could spend another 5 hours talking about.
Heather and Madison
and that's all
have
part of
Cherokee, registered Cherokee Bureau of Land Management numbers. They are members of, and they can prove it. Her great grandfather was on the Indian.
That's
Patrol.
important because a lot of people say they're Cherokee, but because that's all they know.
It's
about
all
the stories. And,
her mom.
But when you're registered, that's a big deal.
Her mom spent years going through and showing the birth certificates and showing they have the roll number of the great grandfather that was on the rolls. And they were able to prove lineage, and it actually passed the Cherokee, the tribe. Like they have a group that approves some of this stuff, and they actually have literally like now the equivalent of a birth certificate that says they are a member of the Cherokee
card-carrying
tribe.
Cherokee.
Yep.
That's what that's my dad and I always say. I'm a card-carrying Klamath Modoc.
Recognized by the Bureau of Land Management and the United States government and everything else. And and that's I mean, you look at Heather and you look at Madison, and there's white blonde girls, and you're like, because they've intermarried. I mean, after the Trail of Tears,
it's the same.
That's what the Cherokee did.
Yes.
They in order to survive, they intermarried, and and that's how they married.
They intermarried, and an important piece of history is that during the Indian Roundup, when the federal government decided to put everybody on a reservation and take their land, which is that's just what happened. Most of them ended up in Oklahoma. Oklahoma was the center of basically where they rounded up the majority of Native Americans. They rounded up in Oklahoma and in a couple of other places across the United States. Well, Oklahoma was the largest concentration. So by consequence, when somebody like Elizabeth Warren says, yeah, I'm Cherokee, it's probably true to a certain extent, I mean, you probably don't have to go back very far into her family tree to run into some Cherokee blood, because she's from that area. And so anybody who has ancestral blood in them from that general area is most likely got some Indian blood in them. I mean, they're not going to necessarily look like they're in. I mean, Heather doesn't look like she's Native American, but she clearly is, And so people just assume, oh, well, you don't have braids and you don't have feathers sticking out of your ass, so you're not a Native American, It's like, come on, dude, really? Is that where we are? It's like saying that somebody isn't Jewish because they don't look to you like you think Jewish people are supposed to look or something. It's ridiculous, I mean, people are what they are. So, my point is that nobody has a bigger complaint against the white man than people that I come from. And yet, when I hear people complaining about their white privilege and think, oh, I'm so sorry of everything I've done and blah, 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 like the BLM movement, and this whole thing that happened over George Floyd's murder, or, alleged murder, I guess, still at this point, although I think it was pretty clear. But, you got all these actors and people who are making these videos, and I'm take responsibility, and I'm just like, oh my God, can you just let them have it?
Yeah.
Can you just let them have their this is a real thing. I mean, this is a real thing that really happened. Do you have to take that too? Like, you already took my land and my salmon. Do you have to fucking take that too? You took their rights for centuries, put them on boats, sent them over here so that you could fucking grow cotton and they could work for you. Do you have to take this too? Can you just leave it? You know, if you really are worried about victimhood and what you've done, why don't you just let them have Black Lives Matter?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
it's so been co-opted by a bunch of angry white anarchist, anti-capitalist people who have that's not the message. I mean, there was one image.
Anti-capitalist people who got to where they are by participating in the capitalistic system.
Well,
by the way,
that too. There was nothing more like
Jesse
to me.
Pinkman.
This whole thing summarized. There was. I think it came out of Portland, but it might have been one of the other cities. But where there was like a white college-age girl yelling at the top of her lungs at a black police officer that was standing there in front of her about racial stuff and BLM stuff and whatever. And I'm like, what do you have to tell this officer?
Yeah,
like,
what dog do you have in this fight?
I don't understand what's going on here. I'm in the Twilight Zone. That like this person is yelling at this police officer who's just standing there doing his job. That he's somehow a part of the problem that BLM is trying. Like, I'm just like, I don't think she had a position to be telling that officer like anything that he didn't already know, or really like he's still there doing his job. And I don't know. It seems so weird to me. And it's really hard for me to grasp where that's all come from, because, Black Lives Matter. And and the people that have taken that to be something else because of their political, aspirations, which are rooted in other things, that they're looking for the Achilles heel, and they've used this to try to further other stuff. And it really pains me.
It's just an ironic definition of white privilege.
Yeah.
To take something that is beneficial for a group of people who've been oppressed for so long, systemically, in my opinion, and just rip it off, just like you've ripped off every other thing in American culture, just like you've ripped off, music and theater and, any other cultural thing you can think of that isn't original to America, which there's very, very little. We're the melting pot, for God's sake, There's very little American food to be found, it's just not a very original place. And so, of course, we're going to take this moment away from the people that deserve it, and we're going to make it ours because, God damn it, we're fucking woke. It's such a ridiculous time we live in, man. I just really hope that people wake up. I really hope that they look back on this year and go, wow, was I ever an idiot? It's just
usually the ones yelling the most out of control, angrily, whatever, about an issue. So often they're actually doing the thing they're yelling about. It's like, it's
exactly.
It's the ultimate version of projection.
It is. It always happens that way. Of course. The pastor who's banging the gay dude in the bathroom for some opioids is the one who's yelling about gays going to hell.
Exactly. And the politicians all do it too. Like if there's a politician coming out, they're doing X. It's like they're actually the ones doing that. There's a fascist, blah, blah, blah. You're actually the one that's being and they're doing it because they're trying to wag the dog. Look over here instead. He's the one doing it, but really they're
also doing it out of guilt. They're doing it out of guilt. They know they're wrong. They know that or if they're not wrong, if it's not a wrong thing, they're ashamed of it. They think it might be perceived as wrong, and so they're trying to, I worked in a church for a long time. It's the same thing with pastors, in my opinion. You know, pastors will get up and they'll do a 6-part series on infidelity. Yeah. And meanwhile, they're stuffing the secretary every night.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, dude, really? You can almost set your watch by it. You can almost go to a church, in my opinion, because I've been around it so much. I grew up in it, and then I was in one. I worked at one for a while. I was an associate pastor for 5 years. You can almost tell what's going on in the office by what the pastor's preaching about. You know, if he's talking about financial responsibility, he's fucking ripping shit off. If he's talking about infidelity, he's banging broads. You know, like it's just you can almost like put it on a calendar.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. He's gonna be talking about this. What's going on? You
This
know,
week,
how's him and the old wife doing these days?
It's about gambling, and then right after the sermon, he's on there going, bet.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. He's shuffling funds around from the offering plate so that he can, can play poker stars. Yeah, it's almost that way. It's almost always that way. Politicians, yeah, exactly the same thing. You can tell. You know, I always make a joke. When is Mike Pence going to admit he's gay? You know, any day now.
I do agree with you. I think the way you and I can talk about this stuff, this is probably the least music show we've done.
Mm-hmm. By far, yeah.
But I guarantee you, especially looking at my Facebook feed and Twitter feed and everything, like this is what everybody's talking about, and it's on our mind.
What everybody's living.
And I personally think that because of like a lot of the unfriendings that have happened, a lot of this stuff, I think the thing to take away from this show, and I hope that people do, is how to talk with people that you don't necessarily agree with, and how you respect people and their thoughts and their opinions, and colleagues that you work with and everything else. I mean, again, Deane and I are not on the same page politically. We probably, we would look at the same ballot and probably vote very differently up and down that ballot on stuff but at the same time, I love Deane. Deane's a great guy, and and I enjoy his company, and I've we did the show for many years together consistently, and I always enjoyed that time, and I've thanked you before, but I thank you again for inviting me into SCOREcast, and I just wish that we were a little bit more like that in not just society, but like, let's just say in our industry. Mm-hmm. And I hope that this can be kind of a model example of how you talk about stuff like that, and how it's not like you and I necessarily agree on let's say Bernie, for example, but at the same time, we leave this conversation completely respecting each other. And I don't want to cut you out of my life because you're going to vote differently than I do. And I don't think, your moral foundations your EQ settings might be different than mine on life, but at the same time, that's you. And that's what makes you great. That's not something to be shunned or run away from. And
that's a good analogy. I feel that way about you too. Our EQ settings might be totally different, but it still sounds like a record.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you, and I love you as a brother. I love you. I'm closer to you than I am to my own brother. I've got a brother, and we don't talk. And you know that because we've talked about that. But I feel like I can say anything to you and not be judged. I can tell you anything. I can say, hey, dude, I really fucked this up and I don't know what to do. And you're not going to judge me. You're going to help me. You're going to talk about it with me. Or I can say, dude, I think this. And you'll be like, well, I think that's crazy. And let me tell you why. And we walk away still as in love with each other as we were 5 minutes prior, And I think that's, for me, that's a key that's lost, and we could go into why. It's a huge conversation, I think. But not spending quality time with each other like we used to has not done us any favors. You know, you and I talk every day. We don't talk like this every day, but we chat. We have a chat. We have
an ongoing chat.
Person. We have an ongoing chat with somebody else. It's hilarious. And I hear from you every day. You hear from me every day in some way, shape, or form. And we're close. We keep close that way. And then when there's something serious to talk about, I go, dude, can we jump on real quick? And you're always like, yeah, man, I'm driving, but yeah, hit me up, or whatever. So we're accessible to each other in a way that I think most friends, or in a way that I think most people, maybe not friends, because friends tend to stick closer, but most people are just like, yeah, let's talk sometime. Okay. And then it never happens. You and I say, hey, let's talk. And it's like, hey, let's talk in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, we're very deliberate about it, and we. So it's like it's almost in a way, and to be funny about it, but like it's like a marriage. You can live with somebody 24 hours a day, but if you don't constantly work on that relationship, it's going to stagnate. It's going to change. People are going to lose interest. There's other shit that's going to creep in. You're going to start doubting and going, wait, maybe she doesn't love me anymore, because we never talk. You got to be engaged. You got to stay in it with people. And I think that you and I do that because we care about each other. I care about your daughter. You care about my sons. I care about your wife. You care about my wife. It's a real friendship, and I find myself, when I get quote unquote divorced by these unfriending people, I realize, what? That wasn't really a friendship. It was just an acquaintance. It was somebody that, I heard somebody say recently, and I won't put it as eloquently as he did, unfortunately, but he basically said, he goes, the real problem with or one of the problems with what they were discussing at that time was, he said, he's an evolutionary biologist. So he said, you can only handle so many friends at one time. I mean, it's just biologically, it's a fact. He goes, there's no set number on it. Like some people say, we can only handle, 110 people at one time or whatever. He goes, there's no really, everybody's different. But he said, if you have 10, the logic has it, if you have 10 friends in real life, you're going to be really tight with those people because you have the time and the bandwidth to make sure that you're a high-quality friend to those few people, because there's not very many of them. But then if you have 4,000 quote-unquote friends on the internet, you're going to be a shit friend. And if that definition carries over to that new definition and people expect the same outcome as they expected when they were just part of those 10 people, and they expect the same treatment now that they're part of the 4,000, they're not going to get it. Because you don't have the ability to nurture and take care of 4,000 friendships the way that you did those 10. So consequently, people end up with, feeling treated poorly. They weren't taken care of. You said some shit they didn't like. Oh, you offended them, and they just have never said anything. And oh, by the way, 5 years ago when you said that, it really hurt my feeling. It's all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you're part of that 10, you'll hear about it right away, just like you and I do with each other, So man, things have changed so much with technology and the way that we communicate, and I think we're all just kind of feeling our way through it. But I think it's important, it's really, really important, in my opinion, to keep aware of that, to remember, like, man, what is it really that's happening? What's really happening is that you've been forced into this structure that has fooled you into thinking you can support all these relationships. And in reality, you just can't. Human beings just were not meant for that. We have our family. That's 5 people right there. That's half the quota right there, And then you have 5 other people that you randomly select that, you're closest to, and that's pretty much it. So I think that's one of the reasons why you and I are able to have these kind of conversations, is because we really truly do love each other. I mean, that if you called me and said, dude, I need you to come here, I'd get on a fucking plane and I would fly there.
Yeah.
Tonight, No question. I don't even care what the reason is. All I have to do is hear you say, I need you. And that would be the end of it, you know? And that's the kind of relationship that we have. And I think that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
You know? And I wish people would work harder toward those kinds of connections with people. Because I think it would be a real different situation if they did.
Yeah, I hope that we, and I'll just end this way. I just hope that more people understand that you don't learn anything from life by surrounding yourself with people that just agree with you.
True.
You know, you learn things in life, or you learn about other people, or you learn, by being around people that don't always agree with you, and by having a diverse amount of people that you don't have to be best friends with them, but again, to shut people out of your life, that's exactly how you create the bubble that causes problems on the right and the left, about people that are just choosing to be in these echo chambers of thought. And there's a lot I've learned in life from people that disagree with me. And in the day, I don't know when it was, way back in college, probably, when I decided to not try to change the people around me to think like me, but just to appreciate who they are. And some of that comes with in confidence of who I am, because I don't feel like I need to be somebody different for somebody else. And so some of that's a confidence thing I think people have to work on for themselves. But as soon as you're confident in yourself, you're confident about being around other people, and that's not going to make you question yourself because someone disagrees with you, but also that you're comfortable that you don't feel like you have to change that other person. Like they can be who they want to be, and there's things you have in common. I mean, there's there's another person that unfriended me over all this other stuff that's very interesting, that I told them very specifically. I said, I respect you as a musician. I respect you as a composer. And, we have that in common. And I think that's a good place to start for any of our conversations. And at the end of the day, they private messaged me about the thing that I was originally disagreeing with them about online. I think it was probably a BLM related thing. And they're like, I just can't be friends with you right now. And I can't, whatever. And they tried to do it the right way by telling me in a private message that they were unfriending me. And I replied, and I said, I wish that weren't so. Can't remember exactly how I replied, but if in the future, if you choose that you want to have that online connection again, I said my door is open, because I'm not. It's not going to change me, but I don't want to change you. And and then they unfriended me and deleted all the stuff that I had commented on their thread, because they just couldn't have that that opinion.
They didn't want to look at it every day. Yeah.
They couldn't have that other train of thought in their thread. So I think those behaviors in general, all they do is perpetuate the division that we have in our country. They don't do anything to and if there's one thing that I think we can, our industry of music people and emotional people that we are, whatever, is just to appreciate each other and to appreciate the diversity of each other. And out of that, we will learn different people, their backgrounds, and what's important to other people. And that's how,
and if you I'm so not a person who gives up, on anything. I mean, I'll stick in there really until it's hurting me sometimes, which isn't good. But I just do. That's who I am. I just don't want to quit. I'm not a quitter. And I think that's what bothers me the most about it. It's like, all right, you want to unfriend me, I get it, You don't want to have these conversations. But how about we just unfollow each other, and we don't unfriend each other, and we just keep watching each other and listening to each other, and maybe in a year we have this conversation again when you're ready, and I'll be different. You'll be different. Lots of shit have gone down, and maybe we'll have a different conversation. Like why the quit?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, you wouldn't do that if you were a composer and a director came to you and said, "Hey, I've got this movie," and you watched it and you were like, "Hey, cool action movie, yeah, let's do it." And then he said, all of a sudden, he said, "Oh, by the way, I'm a Republican. Are you a Trumper? Do you like Trump?" Does this have any bearing on whether I get the job? Like, I mean, like you wouldn't say no to that person. Well, some people would, but if you're smart, you wouldn't say no to that person just because doesn't believe the same thing you do. The movie has nothing to do with any of that shit. It's an action movie. It's fucking, it's dudes in space, whatever, So to me, it's weird. It's like, why are we so easy to just quit on people? I mean, dude, if I quit on everybody that has ever offended me or said something I didn't like, my life would be empty. I'd be living under a bridge somewhere in a box. It just doesn't. I don't get it. We'll stick in there with people for such trivial things, but when it comes down to like life things that are weighty and mean something, we're just like, dismissed.
Yeah. You're being called.
Yeah, you hear that?
Yeah.
So I'm long overdue. I'm 20 minutes late to go to the beach.
We should let you go. You got to go do that. We're going to have a part 2 at some point here anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
All right, man. I love you, dude.
Love you too. It's good to talk with you. Thanks for coming on and doing this again.
Absolutely.
All right.
It's good times. All right.
Keep writing, everybody.